Chapter 851. A Dharmakaya master was the most powerful force in the world. Everyone below the Dharmakaya level was immortal. Once a Dharmakaya master became a Dharmakaya, not only would his lifespan increase greatly, but he would also have the divine powers to move mountains and fill seas. A Dharmakaya master was already an immortal. A group of reincarnators in the enlightenment level would be in danger even if they faced an exterior grandmaster. Not to mention a Dharmakaya master who could easily crush an exterior grandmaster. At this moment, everyone was in despair. Even if everyone had a top-grade precious weapon and activated their divine powers together, they would be nothing in front of a Dharmakaya master. You're the god of the underworld or the netherworld? At this moment, Gu Changqing suddenly asked the dark and cold figure. I am the god of the underworld, the netherworld you speak of. The black figure did not seem to be in a hurry to attack. Instead, he answered Gu Changqing's question very cooperatively. No, you're not the netherworld. Who are you? Qi Jingyin interjected. As the successor of the Devil Lord, he knew very well what had happened in the Nine Serenities. The netherworld was already dead. Even if he was not completely dead, he was at most a reincarnation or an avatar. The black figure in front of them was definitely not the netherworld. At the very least, the netherworld Great Devil's realm was not just a Dharmakaya. I am the netherworld, and also Grand Preceptor Bo-Mi. The black figure smiled at everyone. Back then, I found the real sealed god of the underworld, the netherworld. Here, I obtained the secret of immortality. When I had great power, I became Grand Preceptor Bo-Mi. I used dreams to inspire the people of Bo-Mi and worshipped the god of the underworld with the power of the entire country. After many years of hard work, a crack finally opened in the seal. I merged with the netherworld brand and became the real god of the underworld. The black figure opened his arms. Divine power rose like a demon god. Then where's your body? Gu Changqing glanced at the black figure with a mocking look on his face. That's right. Where's the body? Didn't a Dharmakaya, a master, merge his Dharma form, body, and mind into one? How could he still lose his body? At this moment, everyone secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Even if this imperial advisor Bo-Mi was a Dharmakaya, he was still a crippled one. As long as it wasn't a completely hopeless situation where there was no possibility of resistance, it wasn't as if they didn't have the strength to fight back. My body, hearing Gu Changqing's words, the black shadow, seemed to shake. Then, its voice became sharp. I become the god of the underworld. I become the underworld. Of course, I have to give up my mortal body. I'm afraid it's not abandonment, but something else. At this moment, Qi Jingyin thought of a possibility. A smile appeared on his face. Did you kill all the people in the kingdom of Bo-Mi? You devoured everyone's soul? Why is it devouring? This is a fusion. The black silhouette suddenly screamed hysterically. Not devouring. To make them a part of me. Gathering the spirits of all living beings and fusing them into one. I am all life, and all life is me. I am a mighty underworld god. I am the supreme yellow spring great emperor. All living beings return to one and cross the sea of bitterness together. This was not devouring. This was saving all living beings. When I transcend the sea of bitterness, everyone in the kingdom of Bo-Mi will live eternally in my god kingdom. You're on the wrong path. Gu Changqing shook his head. It's difficult for a nether spirit to become a saint. Although you've fused with the mark of the underworld, it's a different Dharmakaya state. But you're in a very dangerous state. Nonsense. Nonsense. The black silhouette roared crazily. I'm the god of the underworld. I'm the emperor of the underworld. I'm the immortal one. I'm the... Oh, excuse me. At this moment, Xiao Meng raised his hand like a good student. He smiled and said, Excuse me, have you heard of this saying? What saying? The black silhouette was stunned and asked curiously. Of course, Xiao Meng's face was full of mockery. Of course, villains die because they talk too much. As soon as he finished speaking, an old bronze mirror appeared in Xiao Meng's hand. This was the mirror of this life. When he entered the ninth heaven with Gu Shaosang, he saw the mirror of this life in the hall of this life that reflected his current life. The green light from the mirror shone on the black silhouette. Ah! As soon as the mirror shone, the black silhouette let out a shrill scream. This was the power of the mirror of this life. Originally, the mirror of this life did not have any offensive or defensive abilities. It only had the ability to see one's current life. If it were anyone else, there would only be benefits if the mirror of this life shone on them. There would be no harm. But Grand Preceptor Bomi was different. He had devoured the souls of countless Bomi citizens. Although he had used the water of the underworld to wash away the memories of the Bomi citizens, it was safe to devour them. Under normal circumstances, there would not be any problems. But the current situation was very different. The mirror of this life reflected the current life. Even if the memories were washed away by the water of the underworld, the origin of the soul was not destroyed. It could still see the current life through the origin of the soul. So, billions of current lives appeared in Grand Preceptor Bomi's mind. Who am I? Grand Preceptor Bomi roared, his body trembling violently. The black gas around him boiled violently like boiling water. See, I didn't lie to you. Villains die because they talk too much. Little Meng shrugged and reached out to hold up the Buddha's lamp. Billions of innocent souls. It's suitable for Buddhist purgatory. All right, stop fooling around. If Gu Changqing hadn't discovered the truth and informed you with the Lord God's tool, would you have thought of all this? Jiang Jiwei pursed her lips and glared at Little Meng. You? Sigh. Little Meng shook his head gloomily. Would kill me to show off? Remove all karma and obtain a pure land. Namo Amitabha. The sound of Zen was faint, and the light of Buddha was vast and mighty. The lamp suddenly exploded, and the light bloomed, illuminating the world in all directions. At this moment, the infinite light shone on heaven and earth, enveloping the entire hall in brilliant light of Buddha. The great mercy delivered all living beings. In the mighty light of Buddha, countless shadows emerged from Grand Preceptor Bomi's body. As if they had been liberated, they all smiled and dissipated into light. Spiritual light sprinkled down like rain. Not long after, the billions of souls that Grand Preceptor Bomi had devoured were all purged. Preposterous! Preposterous! After the billions of souls were purged, Grand Preceptor Bomi had fallen from the realm of Dharmakaya, but he had regained his consciousness. My countless years of hard work have been destroyed by you. You're courting death. Grand Preceptor Bomi roared. Although he was now only a soul and no longer a Dharmakaya, he still had the power of an exterior grandmaster. A few ants in the aperture enlightening realm had made him suffer such a great loss with a few rare treasures. How would he swallow this? No, you're the one courting death. Little Meng sneered and reached out to pull out the sky-splitting saber at his waist. Clang! The saber light that seemed to split heaven and earth shot into the sky. At the same time, rays of divine light from precious weapons that shook heaven and earth and tore the sky apart whistled through the air. So many superb precious weapons. Grand Preceptor Bomi screamed in horror, and then he was drowned in endless divine light. How did it feel to be smashed to death by a nouveau riche? A few juniors in the aperture enlightening realm each had a superb precious weapon. How rich must they be? Was there any justice in this world? Before Grand Preceptor Bomi died, there was only endless resentment in his heart. Chapter 852. Phew. Leaning on their swords and sabers, everyone felt weak all over and panted heavily. This thing isn't something we can use casually now. Little Meng wiped off his cold sweat and shook his head, his face pale. The Master of Samsara has a rejuvenation pill for exchange. Hurry up and take one. The mission hasn't been completed yet. Gu Changqing reminded them. A pill appeared in his hand, and he swallowed it. Even a Dharmakaya has appeared. Do you think the netherworld will appear later? Little Meng shook his head with a wry smile and swallowed a rejuvenation pill as well. The Master of Samsara's pills were indeed of good quality. After swallowing a pill, his empty dantian was filled with true qi again. We can't activate the precious weapon's superpower anymore. We don't know what dangers lie ahead. Everyone, be careful. Gu Changqing and Little Meng led the way. Everyone went deep into the temple and started searching in the main hall. As expected, the netherworld really did appear. When they stepped into the back of the temple, they saw a broken black flag. As the water rippled, the netherworld's voice rang in everyone's ears. Mortals, worship me, worship me, worship me, and recite my name. I will grant you eternal life and supernatural power. His majestic voice reverberated in the air, as if a god had descended from the heavens. Uft! Little Meng sneered. Stop joking. Eternal life? You don't even have eternal life yourself, do you? You're a prisoner suppressed by Zhenwu, Great Emperor. Why are you still pretending? How dare you? The netherworld roared furiously. Then he could only roar. We already know who you are. Little Meng waved his hand. The storage ring on his finger glowed faintly. You're a part of the netherworld. All of your power has been merged by Grand Master Bomi. Now you're just an empty shell. All right, we'll cut to the chase. Gu Changqing walked up and glanced at the black flag. This is Zhenwu Great Emperor's Zhenwu Devil Sweeping Flag, right? It's already broken, but it can still suppress you. How much power do you have left? We're here to ask you a question. What is it? Acheron's avatar was silent for a while before asking. Is Great Emperor Zhenwu dead or not? If he's not dead, where did he go? Little Meng interjected and asked the question. Zhenwu? Humph, of course he's not dead. Nether clenched his teeth and said hatefully, True Marshal killed my true body and used the power of Nether in my true body to reverse life and death. He opened the bottom of the 9 underworlds and entered the origin of life and death. He should be trying to comprehend the source of the great Tao and advance to the Nirvana realm in one go. Why did you say it so readily? Hearing Nether's answer and the dominator of Samsara's announcement that the task of the mystery of Zhenwu's life and death had been completed, everyone was stunned. The Yellow Springs is actually so cooperative. That bastard, True Marshal, killed my true body and suppressed my avatar. My hatred for him is as deep as the ocean. Why should I hide it for him? It's better for this news to spread all over the world so that Zhenwu's old enemies can find him for revenge. Yomi seemed to have seen through everyone's doubts and explained. All right, thank you for your cooperation. Little Meng touched his chin and smiled. But a demon like you, even if there's only a trace of your soul left, you can't be released to harm others. So I'm sorry. Humph. Ants, with just this bit of ability of yours, how can you do anything to this seat? Even if I use up all my strength, I'm still not someone you ants can touch. Nether snorted disdainfully and did not take Little Meng's threat to heart at all. In fact, Nether was already in the creation realm. Human immortal, earth immortal, heaven immortal, legend, creation realm. Nether's realm had already unified all the additional selves in all the heavens and realms, becoming the only one and beginning to trace back time. Although it had lost its true body and power, the essence of Nether's avatar was still not something that could be killed by ordinary power. For example, when Monkey Sun wreaked havoc in the Heavenly Palace, he was captured and slashed countless times on the immortal slaying platform, but he still could not be killed. We can't kill you, but someone can. Little Meng smiled and waved his hand. He put the True Martial Devil Rinsing Flag and Nether's avatar into the storage space of the Master God's item. With Gu Changqing's example last time, everyone realized that the Master God's item was a great weapon of mass destruction. If there was anything that could not be dealt with, they could put it into the Master God's item and let the Master of Samsara deal with it. As the mastermind behind the scenes, Bosley was very impressed with their understanding. Not bad, not bad. Young man, your understanding is very correct. The Nether's true body and the True Martial Devil Rinsing Flag were not very useful, but everyone's understanding and way of dealing with them were very commendable. So, I'll give you a reward. He reached out, and the Nether's avatar instantly disintegrated. The essence of the creation realm's true spirit was integrated into the True Martial Devil Rinsing Flag. Hint: the True Martial Devil Rinsing Flag has been integrated into the Nether's true spirit and has been slightly repaired. The number of uses has increased to 5. Little Meng was stunned when he heard the master of Samsara's hint. I'm being praised? But, Master, you're such a big shot. Why are you so stingy? What's a few more uses? It's only fitting for your status if it's completely repaired. Li Yu's mouth twitched a few times. Little Meng, you bastard. How dare you take advantage of me? He waved his hand and sent another message. Your own cultivation is the foundation. External things will only disturb your Taoist heart. Remember, these words were naturally spoken with great sincerity and were filled with deep concern. What kind of person is our big boss Li? He definitely won't make things difficult for others, right? The mystery of Jinwu's life and death mission is completed. Mission reward. First, World of Tao of the 7 Strokes of Heaven Interception. Second, Supreme Wisdom Tree. The location of the reward item is Earth Fairy Lake, Mount Fian, Peijing, North Zhou. Please collect it yourself. Hint: this is the forbidden area of the Chao family, one of the 14 families in the world. The location of the reward item is Jinwu's temporary abode. The cold voice echoed in everyone's minds. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. It can't be right. Shouldn't the mission reward be directly given to them? And let the winner find it himself? And in such a dangerous place? Did the Lord of Samsara have to be so deceitful? As for Little Meng, he was already sweating. It can't be, right? Celestial Master, you are such a big shot. Would you make things difficult for others over such a small matter? Aren't you quiet and inactive? This style doesn't seem right. Big Boss Li was full of smiles. As a senior expert, he naturally had to be open-minded and dignified. Naturally, he had to be magnanimous and magnanimous. But I'm still young. I'm not a senior yet. Of course, Big Boss Li's words were definitely not like this. The road of cultivation is full of difficulties and dangers. If you don't have an indomitable heart, how can you set foot on the peak? Experience is indispensable. Don't talk too much. Hearing these dignified words, everyone naturally had nothing to say. Chapter 853. I'm afraid we can't get the reward for the time being. Little Meng turned to look at the crowd and shook his head with a bitter smile. Indeed, Yuan Yushu nodded. The Chao family of North Zhou and our family are both 14 families. It's not hard to estimate the strength of the Chao family by comparing our family strength. The Ruan family of Langia not only had a divine weapon, but also a Dharmakaya of half-step and many exterior grandmasters. As for the ordinary exterior masters, they were even more numerous. As one of the 14 families, the Chao family of North Zhou was not much weaker than the Ruan family of Langia. Moreover, the reward was located in the forbidden area of the Chao family. It was impossible to fly, and even if you had wings. It's indeed difficult for us to go in with our own strength, Gu Changqing said. Gu Changqing was deep in thought. Suddenly, he raised his head and said, but we have people backing us up too. Immortal Chonghe, second on the celestial list. If he can help, the forbidden area of the Chao family can't stop a Dharmakaya master. Yes, Little Meng's eyes lit up. Immortal Chonghe has the heavenly knowledge of I Chi turning 3 pure ones. He can create 3 doppelgangers in a short time. Together with himself, it's equivalent to 4 Dharmakaya masters. It's not difficult for 4 Dharmakaya masters to send us into the forbidden area of the Chao family. But if we do that, won't we be going against the master of Samsara's original intention of training? Fu Jinjin looked at the crowd with confusion. She only felt that they were betraying the kindness of the master of Samsara. Everyone looked at Fu Jinjin and was speechless. Do you really believe in the nonsense of experience? You're so silly and naive. No wonder you were tricked by Zhang Yuanshan. Young people nowadays are really hard to fool. When Liu saw this, he let out a long sigh. Of course, he could not make things difficult for them again. Previously, he was just playing around casually. It was just a joke. Since they had thought of other ways, he would not deliberately make things difficult for them. With Immortal Chonghe's help, it'll be easy to get the Supreme Wisdom Tree left by Jinwu. Shaking his head with a smile, Liu did not bother to pay attention to them. At this point, as long as the Supreme Wisdom Tree is in my hands, I'll be able to get my hands on it. There won't be anything worth paying attention to for a while. Although little Ming was a fish, he was still a fish fry. Ananda would not touch him if he did not fatten him up and become a Dharmakaya. As for the others, they were even less worthy of the mighty figure's attention. Therefore, in the next 10 years, nothing major would happen. During these 10 years, I can also let Bai Zhe cultivate the cultivation method of this world once more. Wouldn't it be too fast to ascend to the Nirvana realm in 10 years? Forget it. I'll just display the strength of my Dharmakaya then. Through the Buddha's palm, the 7 swords of heaven interception, and the initial techniques of the 3 pure ones, Liu had completely grasped the path of cultivation of this world according to the laws of the world contained within the Builder Tree. It could be said that as long as Liu wanted to, he could reach the other shore whenever he wanted. Other than the Tao fruit, there was nothing else in this world that was worthy of Liu's attention. Wait for 10 years. After 10 years, I'll be ready to wrap things up. With a smile on his face, Liu reached out and knocked on the table. Now, let's let Bai Zhe become an exterior. With a thought of bone-chilling chi that could freeze, everything rushed out from the top of his head. A ray of cold light shot into the sky. Boom! A violent roar shook heaven and earth. In an instant, the weather around Luoyang changed drastically. The scorching heat of midsummer turned into a cold winter. Snowflakes fell from the sky, fluttering in the wind. At this moment, everyone in Luoyang was alarmed. Snow in June, a shocking injustice. Injustice my ass. Someone has perfected the interior and achieved oneness of heaven and men. He's breaking through the realm and reaching the sky in one step. Who is this? Advancing to the exterior caused such a large-scale change in the weather? The people in Luoyang were puzzled and guessing, but the various forces in Luoyang did not need to guess. Such a bone-chilling cold, freezing all living things, and it even has a sharp aura. This must be the Glacier Sword Chi. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe? He reached the sky in one step? This person who shot up like a shooting star has such a peerless appearance? He seems to be only 18 years old. A rogue cultivator from the western regions had trampled all the young talents in the world. He was stronger than all the young talents from aristocratic families and famous sections. He can't be number 1 on the ranking list of young masters. No wonder he's a martial arts legend. At this moment, Bai Zhe's performance convinced everyone. Boom! Crack! The wind and clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. When the interior connected with the exterior and the inner and outer worlds merged into one, Heaven's Test was born. This Heaven's Test was not a test of heaven and earth. The reason for this Heaven's Test was Heaven's Test and Earth's Test. It was just like the natural thunder and lightning between heaven and earth. It was a completely natural phenomenon. Boom! With a violent roar, a blazing flame shot up into the sky, turning half the sky red. The fire test has been born. Seeing this scene, the martial artists in Luoyang knew very well that Bai Zhe had broken through the realm. As long as he passed the Heaven's Test, he would be a real master of the exterior. The deeper the accumulation, the more tribulations, and the greater his future achievements. I wonder how many tribulations he can trigger. Although Bai Zhe is talented, he comes from a humble background. It's not easy to trigger 1 tribulation. 2 tribulations are more difficult, and 3 is almost impossible. That's true. A rogue cultivator without the true skill inheritance can only trigger 1 tribulation at most. Although he's breaking through quickly, he can't compare to the disciples of aristocratic families and famous sects after reaching the exterior. While the crowd was discussing, they suddenly realized that the fire in the sky had disappeared and the whistling of wind was heard. Wind test. The second tribulation? A rogue cultivator can trigger the second tribulation? To be able to do this, he's already not weaker than the disciples of aristocratic families. Then, white light flashed all over the sky. The extremely sharp chi of gold whistled as if it could cut the sky into pieces. Gold test. The third tribulation. At this moment, everyone in Luoyang was shocked. A rogue cultivator had reached the highest level that disciples of aristocratic families and famous sects could reach. However, the tribulation was not over. Crash! Endless waves of anger surged and the Tinshui rippled. The fourth tribulation, water test, was born. The fourth tribulation? How is this possible? At this moment, everyone who saw this scene exclaimed in disbelief. Crack! Lightning flashed, and the fifth tribulation, thunder test, was born again. Boom! The earth trembled and the mountains shook. The sixth tribulation, earth test, was born. Next was the seventh tribulation, wood test, the eighth tribulation, yin-yang test, and the ninth tribulation, chaos test. At this moment, everyone in Luoyang, and even everyone in the world who knew about this, was scared out of their wits. 3 tribulations were the highest. 4 tribulations were myths and legends. 9 tribulations. What was going on? Liu smiled at this. He had studied the rules of heaven and earth thoroughly, so he could trigger as many tribulations as he wanted. If he wanted to, he could go through tribulations for a year or two, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times without a problem. As for whether it was scary or not, Bai Zhe had the karma of being famous in Jianghu. The 9 tribulations were unparalleled in the world. This was already famous in Jianghu. Chapter 854. Within a day, the world was shaken. Glacier swordsman Bai Zhe has reached the exterior level. The 9 heavenly tribulations are unparalleled. From the western region to the eastern sea, from the northern plains to the southern wilderness, everyone in the martial arts world was shocked by the news. Is there really such a thing as the 9 heavenly tribulations? Even the emperor of the ancient times, the strongest man of the human race, did not have the 9 heavenly tribulations. Is this glacier swordsman, Bai Zhe, even stronger than the emperor of the ancient times? At this moment, all the major forces in the world could no longer sit still. Such a person's future was bound to be limitless. If they could not control him, then they had to kill him in the cradle. With various purposes, countless big shots stepped out of their homes and rushed to Luoyang of Great Jin. The wind was blowing and the clouds were surging. The whole world was in turmoil. Master Bai, I'm Cui Qingyu, the current master of the Cui clan of Pinjin. The master of the Cui clan of Pinjin appeared in Bai Zhe's yard the moment Bai Zhe reached the exterior level and passed the heavens tribulation. It's thousands of miles from Pinjin to Luoyang. Master Cui, how did you get here so quickly? Liu used the name, Bai Zhe, and put on a cold expression as he spoke expressionlessly. That's because we have the purple qi from the east. Cui Qingyu smiled faintly. When he mentioned the purple qi from the east, his face was full of pride. Cui Qinghe, the purple qi from the east, was one of the 3 Dharmakaya masters of Great Jin. Other than him, the other 2 were Luhan Kong 1 and the phaseless Sword He Qi. What brings you here, Master Cui? Bai Zhe asked coldly. His expression did not change at all, as if he did not feel anything about purple qi from the east. In fact, it was difficult for someone like Cui Qinghe to make Liu feel anything. Master Bai, you're a genius. Once you reach the exterior level, you've reached the 9 heavenly tribulations. Such a handsome young man. This old man can't help but feel some appreciation for his talent. Cui Qingyu stroked his beard and smiled. He nodded faintly, acting like a senior master. On the path of cultivation, one's own aptitude and external resources are indispensable. In order to cultivate the Dharma form of the exterior, one needs to consume countless treasures of heaven and earth. Glancing at Liu, Cui Qingyu smiled and said, Young Master Bai, you come from a humble background, but you have achieved so much. You are indeed a genius. However, it's impossible to go further on the path of the exterior without the full support of a top aristocratic family. At this point, Cui Qingyu stopped and looked at Liu with a smile. As far as he was concerned, with his identity as the patriarch of the Cui clan and the might of the Dharma body of violet qi from the east, Wouldn't a mere Baizé that came from a humble family be easily captured? Baizé could be considered to have some backbone by not bowing his head. However, after hearing his words, the glacier swordsman, who came from a humble background, actually did not react at all. It was as if he had not heard anything. Cui Qingyu frowned and felt a little annoyed in his heart. How could he be so unappreciative? With my identity, I'm already giving you a lot of face by coming to talk to you in person. How could you be so unappreciative? Young Master Bai, I have a precious daughter in my family who happens to be the same age as you. It's a match made in heaven. As long as you marry into the Cui clan from then on. Without waiting for Baizé's reply, Cui Qingyu went straight to the point. Unfortunately, before he could finish, Baizé's reply had already come out. I refuse. Baizé's cold tone and unhesitant reply stunned Cui Qingyu. It was completely unexpected. Someone dared to disrespect the patriarch of the Cui clan? Someone dared to refuse his good intentions? Someone dared to ignore the awe-inspiring reputation of Violet Qi from the East? Did I hear wrongly? Did young Master Baizé refuse? Cui Qingyu suddenly stood up, his face cold. You have to think it through. My Cui family's good intentions aren't something that anyone can refuse. Not to mention that you have just reached the exterior level. As long as you don't become a Dharma body, you have no right to refuse. Whether I'm qualified or not, you'll know after you try. Baizé smiled indifferently and slowly stood up. He reached out and pressed the hilt of the sword at his waist. Cold and sharp sword Qi suddenly rushed out. Ha! You dare to fight? You dare to fight with me? Cui Qingyu was so angry that he laughed. Did the 9 heavenly tribulations make you so arrogant? You have just reached the exterior level and you dare to fight with me. A grandmaster? It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know how to restrain yourself. With a cold snort, a mighty purple Qi rushed to the sky. The power of a grandmaster caused the celestial phenomena within 100 miles. For a moment, the world shook and the clouds surged. Huh, this is the Cui clan? That direction seems to be Baizé's residence. Is Cui Qingyu attacking Baizé? Is he going to kill Baizé? How dare he? After the celestial phenomena occurred, the various forces who had been watching Baizé's movements suddenly became angry. They quickly jumped up and rushed to Baizé's house. Baizé, it's not too late for you to regret. Cui Qingyu, who was full of momentum, stared coldly at Baizé. Accept my will and marry into the Cui clan, and you will have a bright future. Otherwise, you will only die. You have no right to disobey the will of the Cui clan. You say I have no right. Baizé stared at Cui Qingyu and snorted. Actually, the one who has no right is you. Why do you have to be arrogant in front of me? Clang! The sound of a sword shook the world. It was cold, silent, and frozen everything. It was like the coldness and silence after the nirvana of heaven and earth. Everything in the world, including all living beings, would return to nirvana and eternal silence. When the sword was swung, it seemed that the whole world was trembling and wailing. The end was coming. The day of the end had arrived. This was the sword of nirvana. This was the sword of the end. This was the sword of doomsday. When he was promoted to the exterior, Liu sublimated the frosty sword aura of the glacier swordsman. He raised the gist of trueness of the frosty sword aura to the nirvana of heaven and earth. After all living beings returned to nirvana, there would be eternal coldness and silence. What would happen after the nirvana of heaven and earth? After the destruction of matter and energy, everything would turn into nothingness. All motion would disappear, leaving only eternal coldness and silence. When this era was about to end and the doomsday tribulation was about to arrive, the sword that represented the end of the world suddenly triggered the tribulation chi of the end that had been accumulated in this world for countless years. Even a mighty people of the nirvana realm in this world could do nothing about the tribulation of heaven and earth, let alone Cui Qingyu. Although Liu controlled his strength and only showed the strength of the exterior, the tribulation chi that he triggered was not only at this level. Boom! With a loud boom, the violent tribulation chi wreaked havoc, and the will to destroy the world exploded. Cui Qingyu tried his best to defend himself, but the tribulation Qi brought by the sword destroyed his protective divine light. Ah! With a scream, Cui Qingyu spat blood all the way. He was thrown hundreds of feet away and fell heavily on the ground. Cui Qingyu, stop. Huh? At this moment, the forces of Luoyang arrived. Seeing this completely unexpected and unimaginable situation, they were all stunned. Cui Qingyu was defeated? Cui Qingyu, a grandmaster of the exterior, was defeated by Bai Zhe, a teenager who had just reached the exterior? How is this possible? I, Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe, hereby declare, I am alone with my sword and will not be threatened by any forces. If anyone dares to pester me, I will kill them with my sword. The figure in fluttering white robes made a cold declaration. If anyone is not convinced, come and fight me if you are not a Dharmakaya. This declaration of come and fight me if you are not convinced, and Cui Qingyu, who was lying on the ground, gave this teenager who had just reached the exterior a reputation that could shock the world. 9 acupores completed and killed an exterior. Just reached the exterior and defeated a grandmaster. The name of Glacier Swordsman shocked the world. In this way, Bai Zhe's karma of shocking Jianghu was satisfactorily settled. Chapter 855. Brother Bai has reached the exterior and defeated the exterior Grandmaster Cui Qingyu. With the help of immortal Chonghe, Little Meng and the others spent a lot of effort to retrieve the supreme wisdom tree and the world of Tao from the forbidden grounds of the Chao family. When they returned full of joy, they were shocked to hear this shocking news. My God, how is this possible? How could a beginner defeat a grandmaster of the exterior? The gap between a beginner of the exterior and a grandmaster of the exterior was more than 1,000 miles. Did Bai Zhe create another martial arts legend? It said that Mr. Lu De, the wholehearted sword, rushed to Luoyang to protect Glacier Swordsman from being attacked by various forces. After immortal Chonghe returned, he heard some news from the sister-in-law of the wholehearted sword, progenitor Dumu of the immortals. After Mr. Lu De saw Bai Zhe's sword, he couldn't stop praising him and said that he was not alone. Immortal Chonghe smiled. Mr. Lu De also saw the name of Bai Zhe's sword. It was the Sword of Termination, the Sword of Doomsday. It was so powerful because it attracted the heaven and earth's tribulation Qi. It was because of the special sword will that such a legendary record could be achieved. In essence, his cultivation is still at the beginner level of the exterior. The Sword of Termination? Gu Changqing touched the fake immortal-slaying sword at his waist and thought, his way is different from yours. Immortal Chonghe knew what Gu Changqing was thinking. He smiled and said, his sword is the final nirvana after the doomsday. But your will of termination is the process of the nirvana of heaven and earth. I see. Gu Changqing was suddenly enlightened. He sighed in his heart. Brother Bai, I can't believe you've reached this level. It's truly amazing. We're all brothers. We can't let him leave us behind. Little Meng raised his fist and shouted, Brother Bai, I'll catch up. I won't let you leave me behind. Encouraged by Bai Zhe's record, Little Meng, Gu Changqing, and the others devoted themselves to cultivation, intending to catch up with Bai Zhe. Time passed slowly as they cultivated diligently. A year later, Little Meng, Gu Changqing, Jiang Zhuwei, Luo Shengyi, and Zhang Yuanshan had all reached the consummation of the interior realm and reached the exterior realm. 2 years later, Qi Jingyan, Ruan Yushu, and Fu Jinjin all reached the exterior level. It was just that Little Meng had always wanted to recreate the legend of 9 heavenly tribulations, but he had yet to realize it. Only 4 tribulations were shown. The samsara tasks were still ongoing. There were samsara tasks for the 6 realms and samsara tasks for the master of samsara. The 6th Tao of samsara was no longer able to control their lives. Everyone still treated the 6th Tao of samsara's missions as a form of training, so they continued to participate. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Time continued to pass, and everyone's cultivation base continued to improve, and their reputations became more and more resounding. 10 years later, the Jianghu was still the Jianghu, but the heroes were no longer the heroes of the past. The glacier swordsman, Bai Zhe, has condensed his transcendence golden body and officially ascended to the Dharmakaya level. He is now on the celestial list. Ice River swordsman Bai Zhe, a martial arts legend of the 9 heavenly tribulations, did not disappoint. He had advanced to the realm of Dharmakaya and became one of the top existences in Jianghu. We're still one step behind Brother White. Little Meng let out a long sigh. After 10 years of hard work, he had finally completed the exterior level and reached the realm of half-step to Dharmakaya. Unfortunately, the figure that he had always looked up to had already ascended to another level. Once one entered the realm of Dharmakaya, the difference between an immortal and a mortal was huge. A Dharmakaya was already an immortal. Brother White's cultivation base has been higher than ours since the beginning. Besides, with Brother White's ability, isn't it normal for him to reach this realm? Gu Changqing smiled and shook his head. Half-step to Dharmakaya. When I first embarked on the path of cultivation, I never dreamed that I would reach this realm. I'm also a half-step to Dharmakaya. Jiang Zhiwei sent a message to the two through the Master God's tool. Zhiwei has also advanced to half-step to Dharmakaya. Unfortunately, the others are still far behind. Little Meng sighed and gave a bitter smile helplessly. 10 years had passed, and the gap between them had slowly widened. Among the remaining few, Zhang Yuanshan was at the 9th heaven of the exterior, while the others were only at the 7th heaven. Cheating Yin, the successor of the Devil Lord, was also a half-step to Dharmakaya, but he had gone to the southern wilderness to cause revolution and rarely participated in the collective activities. The new heavenly, earthly, and human rankings are announced. 3 huge golden lists hung high on the screen wall outside the 6-fan gate. Countless Jianghu heroes and young masters cheered as they gathered around. Glacier Swordsman has advanced to Dharmakaya and is now on the heavenly rankings. This was the only change on the heavenly rankings this time. Only Dharmakaya masters could be on the heavenly rankings. There are only a few Dharmakaya masters in the world, and there had been no change for many years. Apart from Jiang Zhiwei's master, Heavenly Sword Su Wuming, who had advanced to Dharmakaya a few years ago, Glacier Swordsman was the only one on the heavenly rankings. Killing Blade Su Meng, Howren Evergreen Gu Changqing, and Fairy of the extinctive Sword Jiang Zhiwei are the top 3 on the terrestrial rankings. Why did they disappear? Idiot. They must have advanced to half-step to Dharmakaya. Half-step to Dharmakaya masters are not on the terrestrial rankings. Don't you know? They have advanced to half-step to Dharmakaya. They are only in their 20s, right? My God, compared to them, I've been living like a dog for so many years. Half-step to Dharmakaya masters were not on the terrestrial rankings or the heavenly rankings, because this was a realm of transcendence. After taking the step of ascending to heaven, they would become immortals immediately. This was already the strongest person below Dharmakaya masters. Guanlan Blade, Tang Jing, is already 3rd on the terrestrial rankings. Tang Jing's sister, Tang Mingzhu, is also on the terrestrial rankings. A small family in East City actually has 2 strong people on the terrestrial rankings. It's really hard to imagine. Look, number 1 on the ranking list of young masters. Jianghu is still Jianghu. A cup of wine in the spring breeze of peach blossoms, 10 years of rain in Jianghu. Seeing the scene in front of the 6-fan gate, Little Meng sighed and felt that the world had gone through a lot. Husband, father of the child, why are you here? Go back and take care of the child. A beautiful figure with a sweet smile quietly came to Little Meng's side. Her soft voice was intoxicating. Unfortunately, what she said made him speechless. Child, you said it's been 10 years. Why don't you give birth to a child for me to see? Little Meng rolled his eyes gloomily. Husband, you haven't favored me in the past 10 years. If I really give birth to a child, will you acknowledge it? A strange smile appeared on Demonis Gu's beautiful face. Little Meng was speechless. No matter what, He could never wear a hat of that color. Okay, let's stop joking. Husband, we're about to become Dharmakayas. For a fisherman, our fish is already very fat. Gu Shaosang came forward and gently poured a cup of wine for little Meng. Husband, whether we live or die, it's a gamble. I know. Little Meng took a deep breath. Although I gave you the invitation letter and let you escape from the control of the sixth Tao. But the dangers we face are not limited to the sixth Tao. I've never relaxed. It's good that you know. Gu Shaosing put down the wine pot and smiled sweetly. Husband, after today, whether we can meet again depends on God's will. There's no such thing as God's will. Little Meng stood up with his knife. If God stops me, I'll cut God. In that case, I wish you a triumphant return. Gu Shaosing picked up a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. She was going to live or die. Chapter 856. The battle between the fish and the fisherman is about to begin. Seeing that little Meng had become a half-step to Dharmakaya, Liu smiled and stepped out of the house. The show is about to begin. Then, the new Dharmakaya master, Bai Zhe, returned to the Tsangyue Bai clan. The final battle is about to begin. I don't have much time left in this world. I have to settle the final karma. After returning to the Tsangyue Bai clan, he passed the Frost Sword formula to the Bai clan and left the Ice Sword, which was already a heavenly weapon. Then, Liu came to the Ice Valley where Bai Zhe's body was found. The karma has been settled. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. The karma of Bai Zhe was settled. Then, Liu built an ice palace in the Ice Valley with the excuse of practicing in seclusion and waited for the show to begin. Main task: Master of the Jade Virtual Palace. Since the disappearance of the Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, the Jade Virtual Palace has been without a master for many years. Inheriting the name of the Heavenly Lord, bearing the karma of the Heavenly Lord. Samsara Traveler Su Ming, please open the Jade Virtual Palace that has been sealed for a long time and become its leader, the new Heavenly Lord Yuanshi. After bidding farewell to Gu Shaosang, Little Meng received this main task. It's here. Little Meng exhaled a long breath and smiled. Ananda, you want a fish? This fish of mine, however, will give you a big surprise. Holding the long knife at his waist, Little Meng held his head high and his heart was full of fighting spirit. Start the main task. An invisible wave flashed and the world changed instantly. In front of him was a void. There was no sky, no earth, no sun, no moon, no stars, no mountains, no rivers. There was only an ancient palace standing in a void. The palace was dark yellow. Between the heavy eaves and arches, there were streams of chaotic airflow like real dragons circling. On the four sides of the palace, there were 9 ancient wells, each of which was deep and bottomless. They were surrounded by jade railings and emitted an endless chaotic aura. In front of him, the vermilion door was tightly shut with 365 golden nails on it. There was a plaque hanging high above the door, with 3 strange and profound words written on it. Jade Virtual Palace. Little Meng heaved a long sigh of relief. Having inherited the primeval karma, he had finally stepped into the Jade Virtual Palace, the heavenly primogenitor's Taoist field. This place. Just as he was about to walk towards the palace gate, Little Meng suddenly trembled. This was because he realized that this palace was the place where Yang Jian, the true Lord Erlang, had taken his earth body from Earth back then and placed his earth body. My body before I transmigrated was actually in the Jade Mirage Palace? So, Heavenly Lord Yuanshi had already predicted everything many years ago. What's the use of my earthling body here? With some doubts in his mind, Little Meng walked to the front of the palace gate and activated the premier golden scripture. He pinched the Wu Ji seal of the premier 9 seals and pressed his hand on the palace gate. Boom! When the chaotic energy of the limitless seal came into contact with the door of the palace that had been sealed for a long time suddenly shook. Endless chaotic energy rushed out, and the vermilion door slowly opened. As the radiance flowed, it was as if a new world had been opened. Chaos was split open, yin and yang manifested, Light and darkness intertwined, and time flowed. Endless visions appeared in the open door. After a while, as the four elements gushed out, a golden path extended from the deep and boundless palace to Little Meng's feet. Golden lotuses bloomed all over the sky, thousands of auspicious clouds, and thousands of auspicious chi. The melodious sound of the bell echoed in the palace, as if it was welcoming its new master. Jade Mirage Palace, Heavenly Lord Yuan Shi. Little Meng raised his eyes and looked ahead. He took a deep breath. He knew that once he took this step, the future would be completely unpredictable. But if he did not take this step, he would not even have a future. With his current strength, he could not fight against Ananda at all. He could only be absorbed by Ananda. From then on, there would be no Su Meng in the world, only Ananda. One has an unknown future, the other is certain death. I have no other choice. Little Meng gritted his teeth and took a step forward, stepping onto the endless, auspicious golden path. As the radiance flowed, it seemed to have crossed endless time and space, as if it had crossed the universe. Little Meng's figure appeared in the depths of the palace. In front of him was a jade-colored palace, with the words Jade Pure Palace written on the plaque above. In front of the palace, there was a lotus pond. Green lotuses bloomed in the pond. The pond water below the green lotuses seemed to be condensed by endless chaos and was filled with chaotic airflow. Chaotic green lotus. Out of habit, Little Meng used the Master God's item to identify it and got a shocking answer. Chaotic green lotus, a treasure of the gods. It was a real myth. Back then, Nez's physical body was destroyed and only a little of his soul was left. His body was reconstructed by Tai Zhenren with the chaotic green lotus and turned into a peerless body comparable to the 8-9 mysteries. Such a treasure. Just as he was about to plunder, Little Meng suddenly froze and laughed. After inheriting the Jade Mirage Palace, the entire Jade Mirage Palace is mine. Why would I plunder my own things? This habit is really... Shaking his head with a smile, Little Meng threw away the chaotic green lotus and walked into the Jade Pure Palace. The palace was very simple. There was nothing except for a few futons. But Little Meng saw a person inside. Zhenhui. The guy sitting on the futon below with red lips and white teeth and a smile on his face was his junior brother in the Shaolin Temple. The little monk Zhenhui. Senior brother, you're finally here. Little monk Zhenhui, who had long black hair and wore a Taoist robe made of water, greeted Little Meng with a smile. I'm Zhenhui. My name is also Yang Jian. Huh? Little Meng was dumbfounded. It turned out that Yang Jian, who captured his earthly body, had always been by his side. After so many years, senior brother's demeanor is even better than before. Zhenhui laughed. I wonder if senior brother has jumped off a cliff and had a fortuitous encounter in these years. Little Meng was embarrassed and speechless. This was what he said to Zhenhui when he was in the Shaolin Temple. Now that Erlang Shen said it, Little Meng was inexplicably embarrassed. At that time, you were just a simple-minded idiot. Who knew that you were actually Erlang Shen? Can you blame me for this? Junior brother Zhenhui, why did you capture my earthly body? Since it was Zhenhui, Little Meng did not treat him as Erlang Shen. He asked directly, just to give senior brother a chance to break free from the shackles. Zhenhui waved his hand. In a flash of light, Little Meng's earthly body instantly appeared in front of the two. Jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, and messy hair. This was Little Meng's appearance before he crossed over. But this earthly body suddenly exuded a strong aura. Its cultivation was exactly the same as Little Meng's. Little Meng was dumbfounded. While I was on Earth, I couldn't even catch my breath after running 100 meters. How could I be so strong? Chapter 857. It's just a secret technique of the Yuan Xian seal. Zhenhui smiled and said, the Yuan Xian seal, the two hearts are connected. When senior martial brother was practicing, this earth body was also practicing. The Yuan Xian seal was one of the 9 primeval seals. It was normal for the Heavenly Lord Yuan Shi's heavenly knowledge to have this feature. Little Meng nodded and suddenly understood. One person and two figures. It seemed to be a good idea. Senior brother, you are Anunda's fish. Now, you are about to become a Dharmakaya. For Anunda, you've already fattened up this fish. Zhen Hui pointed at the body of earth beside him and said, with your current strength, you have to prepare in many ways to fight against Anunda. This original body is one of your trump cards. Zhen Hui pointed at the back of the Jade Clear Hall and said, in the back hall, there is the complete inheritance left by the Patriarch. After you take this inheritance, you will have a better chance to fight against Anunda. You have done so much just to let me take the title of Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, to bear the karma of Heavenly Lord Yuanshi. Little Meng knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Little Meng could not figure out the pros and cons of taking my name and bearing my karma. Senior brother, don't worry. There are only advantages and no disadvantages. The Patriarch once said that taking the name of Heavenly Lord Yuanshi would mean bearing his karma. Senior brother, you are Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, the one who created the world in the next era. After explaining, Zhen Hui Little Monk smiled and waved at Little Meng. Senior brother, I'm just an incarnation of spiritual qi. After I meet you, I'll dissipate. Senior brother, goodbye. As soon as he finished his words, the little monk Zhen Hui disappeared without a trace. The Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, who created the world in the next era? Little Meng frowned, feeling a little puzzled. Forget it. Heavenly Primogenitor it is, so be it. It's still too early to talk about the next era. I have to deal with the current situation first. Little Meng looked at the earthling body, sitting cross-legged on the futon, and nodded. With this backup, I'll be more confident when I fight against Anunda. Even if you delete one account, I still have another. Naturally, it would be the safest to leave the earthling body in the Jade Mirage Palace. Little Meng put down his earthly body and walked to the back of the Jade Clear Palace. Naturally, we can't let go of the primeval Lord of Heaven's inheritance. Pushing open the door to the back of the palace, he found that it was a mess inside. It was like the endless darkness at the beginning of the world. There was no up, down, left, or right. There was no past or present. There was no law or order. There was no material energy. When Little Meng stepped into the chaotic nothingness, a Taoist appeared in front of him. The Taoist was illusory, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. The Taoist formed a hand seal and pressed forward. Boom! With a loud explosion, the endless primal chaos turned into a stream of light and entered Little Meng's mind. This is the limitless seal. Feeling the information in his mind, Little Meng suddenly understood. The inheritance of the great Tao did not have words, only true meaning. The primeval Lord of Heaven had his own path. Although Little Meng had accepted the karma of the primeval Lord of Heaven and become the primeval Lord of Heaven, he was not the original primeval Lord of Heaven, but himself. This kind of great Tao was not mixed with anyone's understanding. How far he could go depended on himself. In fact, this method had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that Little Meng's future path would not be disturbed by anyone, and he could go further. The disadvantage was that with Little Meng's realm, he did not know when he would truly understand the true meaning of primal chaos. If he had an epiphany, it would not be strange for him to understand it instantly. If he was not enlightened, it was not impossible for him to not understand it in his lifetime. After inheriting the Limitless Seal, next was the Kai Tian Seal, the Tao Yi Seal, and so on. The true meaning of the primeval 9 seals was passed down one by one. Just like before, it was only the essence and did not mix with anyone's understanding. At this point, the inheritance of the primeval 9 seals was completed. 9 seals, primeval Lord of Heaven. When Little Meng was immersed in the understanding of great Tao, his hands unconsciously formed the primeval 9 seals. Under the guidance of the breath, a cloud appeared above Little Meng's head. Primal chaos flowed, black and yellow intersected, golden light shone, and flowers fell. At this moment, Little Meng's body shook and his mind kept rising. It was as if he had transcended space and time and arrived at an inexplicable point in the void. The universe originated from the Big Bang. The singularity exploded and the universe was born. The knowledge and worldview that originated from Earth made little Meng's understanding of primal chaos was the singularity. Boom! An illusory light shadow like a black hole was born in the cloud above little Meng's head. It was infinitely big and infinitely small. It existed, but it was as if it did not exist. The singularity of a universe is my limitless seal. Coming back to his senses from the Enlightenment, little Meng smiled and dispersed the seal in his hand. Now, everything that needs to be prepared has been prepared. I just need to wait for Ananda to lift the fishing rod and reel in the fishing line. Walking out of the back hall, little Meng looked at the body of Earth sitting cross-legged and sneered in his heart. Ananda, I wonder how you will reel in the fishing line. An invisible wave flashed, and little Meng instantly left the Jade Virtual Palace and returned to the main world. The task of the master of the Jade Virtual Palace was completed. Naturally, he had to return. In the following period of time, little Meng had been perfecting his preparations to deal with Ananda. Half a month later, little Meng received a task. This was not the task of the master of Samsara, but the sixth Tao, the mystery of the demonic sage's life and death. After the demonic tribe attacked Spirited Mountain, the demonic sages disappeared. Their life and death became a mystery. The task is to enter Spirited Mountain and uncover the mystery of the demonic sage's life and death. Of course, there was a prompt from the master of Samsara after this task. This is a task of the sixth Tao. You can unconditionally reject it. Do you want to reject this task? I have to face this day sooner or later. There is no need to shrink back, and I can't shrink back. Little Meng took a deep breath, pressed the long saber, and raised his head. Accept the task. Young man, you are quite brave. Liu nodded with a smile. So go ahead. Perhaps there is a huge benefit waiting for you. Little Meng and Ananda's entanglement followed the original trajectory until the end, when little Meng cut off this previous life. However, Liu didn't have that much time to wait for him. In this way, it was inevitable that he would set Ananda up. The Spirited Mountain was disturbed by the Amitabha Buddha I created last time. The corpses of the Buddhist disciples on Spirited Mountain were all purified. However, there are still many good things on Spirited Mountain. Of course, Liu would not help for free. Big Boss Li was the one who got up early if there were no benefits. The Jingu Bang and the great sage of the demonic race who was protected by it were completely ignored. The monkey's cultivation was still far from the Nirvana realm. He was still being kept in the alchemy furnace of Taishang Laojun, so there was nothing to worry about. However, the five-finger mountain that Gautama Buddha used to suppress the real body of Ananda, the Bodhi tree that strengthened the seal on the five-finger mountain, and the three gems Jade Rui that Heavenly Lord Yuanshu placed on it. These were all treasures of the Nirvana realm. Big Boss Li said that he would take them and study them first. Chapter 858. Liu, who had entered the spectator mode, looked relaxed. However, little Meng, who had climbed up Spirited Mountain again, looked serious. Even though he had made a lot of preparations, even though he had some backup plans, he was still not confident in facing Ananda, who was a top mighty person in the Nirvana realm. Ananda was Hao Yin, a mighty person in the Nirvana realm of the same generation as the three Pristines. Hao Yin was the first celestial ruler, and he was the heaven's will. He had inquired a lot about Ananda from the master of Samsara. The more he knew how terrifying Ananda was. Using the Samsara technique to cultivate himself, Hao Yin was simply unimaginably terrifying. The celestial ruler's body was the Nirvana realm. He was reincarnated as the god of thunder and became the Nirvana realm. He was reincarnated as Ananda, practiced the Buddha's palm in reverse, turned Buddha into demon, and still reached the Nirvana realm. He had cultivated to the Nirvana realm for several consecutive reincarnations. What kind of talent did he have? What kind of extraordinary peerless talent did he have? With 3 reincarnations of the Nirvana realm, it was no wonder that Ananda could destroy Spirited Mountain, and even the Buddha could only suppress him but could not kill him. Even if he was suppressed by the Five Fingers Mountain, the Bodhi tree, and the 3 gems Jade Rui's scepter. A part of Ananda's spirit escaped and became one of the masters of samsara in 6 realms. Of course, it was hard to say whether this escaped part of Heavenly Lord Yuanshur's spirit was purposely going easy on him. After all, Heavenly Lord Yuanshur also had designs on Little Meng. He planned to use Ananda to achieve the goal of reducing and seeking emptiness and take over the karma of Heavenly Lord Yuanshur. Spirited Mountain, I'm here again. Stepping on this land of Buddhism again, Little Meng felt a little emotional. Thinking of the time when he was chased by the king of Emerald Waves, a little monster who had just entered the exterior realm, he sighed again. After Amitabha expiated Spirited Mountain, this place regained the atmosphere of Buddhism and no longer looked gloomy and scary. Little Meng was now a half-step to Dharmakaya and was only a step away from breaking through. He already had some extraordinary power. He jumped, flew on Spirited Mountain, and soon reached the top. There was a big temple on the mountaintop. Even though the great battle back then had left this temple in ruins, it still exuded an aura that transcended the mortal world. This is the Great Thunderclap Temple. With a wave of his hand, the plaque of the Great Thunderclap Temple flew out of his hand and hung on the door of the dilapidated temple. Back then, he had taken this plaque, and now he was returning it. This was an end, just like the battle they were about to face. Everything was over. You're the only one here. A voice rang out from the Great Thunderclap Temple. This voice was exactly the same as Little Meng's own. Obviously, this was Ananda. Do the rest of you still want to drag me down? I didn't go overboard. As the radiance surged, a handsome bald monk dressed in a black robe slowly stepped out of the main gate of the Tempest Temple and came before Little Meng. This person looked exactly like Little Meng. Ananda. Little Meng took a deep breath and pressed down on his long saber. Next, it was a battle of life and death. Don't be nervous and don't resist, because it's meaningless. Ananda shook his head with a smile and waved his hand gently. Then, Little Meng was shocked to find that he could not move at all. His cultivation and strength could not be used at all. Do you understand? Everything you have was made by me. I was the one who captured your soul, and I was the one who chose your current body for you. Do you think I won't leave some means to control you? Ananda chuckled. I know you want to resist, and I also know you will resist. Unfortunately, a fish is a fish. You will never be able to break free from a hook. Ananda walked to Little Meng with ease and looked at the fish whose strength was restrained. He smiled and said, You are my backup plan to break free from the seal. If I merge with you, I can break free from the seal, and I can fight for the fruit of Tao of this era. So, how can I let you break free from my control? He pointed a finger. His finger, which was like white jade, gently touched Little Meng's glabella. You are me. So, return to your original self. Ananda's avatar instantly turned into a ray of light and rushed into Little Meng's glabella. He instantly took control of the body and occupied the sea of consciousness. Then, where's the divine soul? Where's the spirit? After occupying the body, Ananda was shocked to find that Little Meng's spirit was gone. Are you shocked? Are you surprised? At this time, a short-haired Little Meng wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and sneakers walked out with a sneer. This is your original body? Ananda suddenly realized when he saw Little Meng's appearance. So you have found your original body. Back then, when I extracted your soul, I did not destroy this body of yours. Ananda shook his head with a smile and slowly raised his hand. This was Little Meng's body in this world. This was the body of Su Xian. All your resistance is meaningless, because the gap between us is so big that you can't imagine. Is that so? Little Meng sneered. If I really don't have the strength to fight, why do you think I came out? Wouldn't it be better for me to change back to my original body and hide? Huh. Ananda frowned. He could not understand where Little Meng's confidence came from. Knife come! Little Meng shouted and reached out his hand. Boom! Thunder roared and lightning flashed. A heavy saber surrounded by endless lightning bolts tore open the rift and landed in Little Meng's hand. This was the tyrant's invincible blade. The tyrant's invincible blade that was kept in the hands of the fairy of the ninth heaven. However, when Little Ming refined the thunder god's mark on the back of his hand with the help of the master of Samsara, this knife belonged to Little Ming. The tyrant's invincible blade? Is this where you got your confidence from? Ananda laughed. You probably don't know. This saber actually belongs to me. I am the thunder god. The sword of the Nirvana realm that originated from the thunder god was originally mine. Are you going to use my knife to deal with me? It may have been yours in the past, but now it is mine. Little Ming sneered and raised the tyrant's invincible blade in his hand. A mighty aura rose into the sky. Huh? Ananda was shocked. He suddenly realized that the mark he left on the tyrant's invincible blade had completely disappeared. Damn it! Who was the mastermind behind this? The mark of the Nirvana realm could only be erased by the Nirvana realm. The mark on the tyrant's invincible blade had disappeared. Who did this? Even I was fooled. At this moment, Ananda had a feeling that things were out of his control. All right, the master of Samsara, this cheat was just that awesome. My life, a mighty aura rose. Little Ming raised the long knife in his hand and shouted to the sky as if he was announcing to the world. Don't ask about the past. Don't cultivate the afterlife. I only ask for a vigorous and vigorous life. Defeat all the heroes of the various clans and laugh proudly at the six paths. The loud shout spread all over the wilderness and shook the heavens and the earth. Boom! With a slash of a knife, the world changed color. The karma of the previous life was cut off, and everything in the next life would become nothing. Only in this life. I only asked for a supreme life. At this moment, the shackles were cut off and the cage was broken. The mind, dharma form, and body merged into one. Little Ming officially broke through the shackles and became a Dharmakaya, transcending the mortal world. Chapter 859. That's really amazing. Ananda's face darkened when he saw that Little Ming had cut off his previous life and the next life with such a decisive stroke. He had become a Dharmakaya in one fell swoop. The imprint on the tyrant's invincible blade was erased, and Little Ming could cut off the karma of his past life and future life to become a Dharmakaya. All this clearly showed that there must be a nirvana behind Little Ming. No matter who is behind you, unless he takes action personally, you will still die. He waved his hand, and a black seal appeared in his hand. The mighty aura shook heaven and earth. All living beings in the world were in the samsara. This was the seal of samsara. Hotu transformed into reincarnation, transforming herself into a reincarnation seal. This seal of samsara was in Ananda's hands. The seal of samsara was the foundation of the six paths of samsara. Ananda, who controlled the seal of samsara, controlled most of the authority of the six paths of samsara. As a samsara traveler, Little Ming was already under the control of the seal of samsara. His life was in Ananda's hands. You're just a fish. Do you think you can break free from the hook? Accept your fate. I can kill you at any time. Ananda raised the seal of samsara and wiped it with his hand. He was about to kill Little Ming with the seal of samsara. However, your imprint of the real soul disappeared. You escaped from the control of the seal of samsara. How is this possible? When Ananda used the seal of samsara to kill Little Ming, he was shocked to find that Little Ming's imprint of the real soul was no longer on the seal of samsara. Ananda was stunned. Who did this? To be able to erase Little Ming's true spirit mark right under my nose without me noticing. Who else would have the ability to do so? Are you shocked? Are you surprised? There is something even more shocking. Little Ming sneered. Do you know that your biggest mistake is to occupy my body? With a flick of his finger, an invisible wave swept across. Ananda was shocked to find that he could no longer move. Su Ziyuan's body was indeed chosen by you for me, and you did leave behind some means to control it. But do you think I don't have any means? On the body of Su Ziyuan, occupied by Ananda, there was a green ring on his left finger that was emitting a faint halo. It was this halo that made Ananda, who had taken over his body, seem to be frozen and unable to move at all. This was Little Ming's chief god's tool. Unauthorized user detected. Reincarnator Su Ming is determined to be in a state of emergency. The countermeasures were activated. Do you want to kill unauthorized users? After Ananda seized Little Ming's body of Susan, Little Ming heard this reminder from the dominator of samsara. Little Ming was pleasantly surprised. Ananda, by seizing this body, you are courting death. You want to kill me? I'm the one who wants to kill you. With a cold snort, Little Ming waved his hand, and the green ring suddenly burst out a dazzling light. As the five-colored rays rolled up, the body of Su Ziwen and Ananda's spirit disintegrated and dissipated into nothingness. The angler, Ananda, had disappeared without a trace before he could even let out a scream. After the five-colored rays dissipated, only a green ring was left floating in the air. Even the seal of samsara in Ananda's hand had disappeared. Cut the fence and break free from the shackles. From now on, I am free to swim in the vast sea and fly in the sky. The boundless world is mine to roam. There is no hot-blooded fight, only a casual wave of the hand. Little Ming, who had achieved the final victory, was very happy about this. Who would want to risk their lives if they could finish it easily? With the help of the dominator of samsara, Little Ming passed this test without any mishap. Reminder: Ananda's real body is suppressed at the side of Spirited Mountain under the Five-Finger Mountain. Ananda's real body has not been destroyed, so he still can't get rid of his identity as a fish. When Little Ming was full of joy, the dominator of samsara poured a bucket of cold water on him. Ananda's real body? Little Ming looked up to the left side of Spirited Mountain, where there was a five-finger mountain shaped like a palm. The huge mountain was only a little smaller than Spirited Mountain. On this mountain, there was a giant tree shining with spiritual light. It was a Bodhi tree. Even a Buddha could only suppress the real body of Ananda, but could not destroy it. How can I destroy it? Looking at the Five-Finger Mountain, Little Ming smiled bitterly. There was nothing he could do, not to mention destroying the real body of Ananda. Even climbing the Five-Finger Mountain was impossible for Little Ming, who had achieved the realm of Dharmakaya. After all, that was a nirvana artifact of Gautama Buddha. Reminder: on the Five-Finger Mountain, there is also the Trijim Jade Rui of the Heavenly Lord Yuan Shi. Hearing this reminder, Little Ming was shocked. Yes, I have inherited the heritage of the Heavenly Lord Yuan Shi and bear the karma of the Heavenly Lord Yuan Shi. Doesn't this Trijim Jade Rui belong to me? Thinking of this, Little Ming quickly jumped up and rushed to the Five-Finger Mountain. What a heavy pressure! Just as he reached the foot of the Five-Finger Mountain, a huge pressure pressed down on him. Little Ming only felt that an extremely heavy mountain was pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to move. It is indeed the most precious treasure of Gautama Buddha. Under the Five-Finger Mountain, it is really not something that an ordinary person can withstand. Little Ming let out a long breath. At this moment, he was already standing under the Five-Finger Mountain and could already feel the Trijim Jade Rui. Wuji, heaven splitting, Tao One. He pinched the premier 9 seals in his hand. The Wuji chaos, the Big Bang, and the principles of karma rushed out, instantly activating the Trijim Jade Rui placed on top of the Five-Finger Mountain. Boom! With an earth-shattering sound, an endless aura of chaos spread out, turning the surroundings of the Five-Finger Mountain into chaos. With the Trijim Jade Rui as a cover, I can secretly make my move. Liu smiled and reached out his hand. An invisible wave rushed out and through the Master God's tool in Little Ming's hand. The recovery channel of the system's resource vault opened. In the chaos, the Five-Finger Mountain, the Bodhi tree, the Trijim Jade Rui, and the real body of Ananda suppressed under the Five-Finger Mountain all disappeared. The seal of samsara, the Five-Finger Mountain, the Bodhi tree, the Trijim Jade Rui, and the real body of Ananda are all existences of the Nirvana realm. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse with a smile on his face. Unfortunately, I have to return the Trijim Jade Rui and the real body of Ananda to Little Ming. Otherwise, I won't be able to play anymore. With a wave of his hand, the real body of Ananda was instantly disintegrated, and all traces of Ananda were erased. Young man, today is the day you achieved Tao. Li waved his hand, and threw the trigem Jade Rui out, instantly falling into Little Meng's hand. With the trigem Jade Rui in his hand, the aura of chaos erupted again. As the aura of chaos spread, a ray of light flew out from nothingness and fell between Little Meng's eyebrows. This ray of light was the disintegrated real body of Ananda. Ananda was Haoyan, Ananda was the god of thunder, and Ananda was the devil Buddha, 3 nirvana realm, a vast and boundless cultivation. More importantly, Ananda was Little Meng. After the disintegration, all traces of Ananda were erased. The power of the real body of Ananda naturally became Little Meng's. There is no hindrance, no rejection, and no discomfort. After this power was integrated, Little Meng's own spiritual imprint was imprinted in this power. Everything of Ananda became Little Meng's. With a boom, heaven and earth shook. At this moment, Little Meng's aura rose infinitely, transcending space and time, reaching the nirvana realm. In an instant, Little Meng achieved the nirvana realm. Chapter 860. Damn it, what's going on? When the aura of the nirvana realm shook the world, countless powerful figures in the world jumped up in shock. The powerful figures of the nirvana realm who were sleeping in the void and chaos woke up one by one. A newly born nirvana realm was beyond everyone's expectation. There were only a few nirvana realm cultivators since ancient times. No one wanted a new nirvana realm cultivator to be born. A new nirvana realm cultivator meant one more person to fight for the fruit of Tao. Ananda? He was tricked by the heavenly Lord Yuan Shi, and then his fish took over his nest? A new nirvana realm cultivator is a threat. We must eliminate him before he turns back time and marks his existence at the beginning of the world to become the oldest nirvana realm cultivator. Amit Ba, Juni, Empress Hua, Queen Mother of the West, these ancient nirvana realm cultivators all made up their minds to kill this new nirvana realm cultivator. But the 3 pure ones felt different. How could there be such a variable? How could there be such a good opportunity? That's great. In the void of chaos, there was a loud roar. The heavenly Lord Yuan Shi, who had retired for countless years, suddenly laughed out loud. His entire body exploded and turned into a chaotic divine light. A treasure that looked like a flag and filled with chaotic aura rushed out of the void. It rolled up the chaotic divine light that the heavenly Lord Yuan Shi turned into and rushed out of the chaos. It broke through time and space and rushed to Little Meng on Spirited Mountain. Junior brother Yuan Shi, is it time? In another void, a white-haired old Taoist who was sitting cross-legged in front of an alchemy furnace suddenly opened his eyes and laughed. A Tai Chi diagram rolled up, and the white-haired old Taoist collapsed instantly. He turned into a yin and yang chi and merged into the Tai Chi diagram. It rushed out of the chaos and went to immortal Chongha. Billions of years of waiting, billions of years of killing. Finally, this day, a Taoist in a green robe laughed. He exploded into a yellow chi. For long swords and a formation diagram rolled up the yellow chi. They broke through the void and went to Gu Chongqing. Damn it, this is the 3 pure ones trump card. This is their reducing and seeking emptiness. Seeing this scene, Amit Ba, Kundi, Niuhua, and Shi Wangmu instantly understood everything. Ananda's fish? Retirement? Tranquility? They were all fake. The 3 pure ones were fighting for the opportunity to attain the Tao. The 3 purities wanted to achieve a Tao fruit. Kill. At this moment, it had nothing to do with good or evil. Every ancient nirvana realm person only had one thought in their mind, and that was to kill. One era, one Tao fruit. If the only chance to transcend is snatched away by the 3 pure ones, then wouldn't all our efforts over the past hundreds of millions of years be for naught? After Hong Jun took the primal chaos Tao fruit, the final N Tao fruit would be everyone's only chance at the end of the epic. The struggle for Tao fruits was a life-and-death struggle. The Amitabha Buddha waved his hand, and a vast and mighty Buddhist light covered the sky and covered the earth. It wasn't compassion, nor was it redemption, but it was a killing blow. Kundi also used the Tree of Seven Wonders. Its mighty radiance tore through the sky and destroyed the world. At this moment, there was no mercy, only death. They had to kill the three Pure Ones' target. Otherwise, the three Pure Ones would cut off all karma and break free from the shackles of heaven and earth. They would attain the Tao. The Amitabha Buddha and Kundi teamed up and attacked Little Meng together. After all, Little Meng had accepted everything from Ananda. He was already a new Nirvana Rel person. On the other side, in the palace of Empress Hua, a mountain river map shook the void and slammed down on Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing was still in Luoyang. The most prosperous place in Dajin was near Luoyang. Billions of people lived in this area. Nuwa was the holy mother of the human race. But at this moment, she didn't care about how many people she would kill with this attack. The only way was to eliminate the three Pure Ones' target of reducing and seeking emptiness. Otherwise, the battle for the fruit of Tao would have been a complete failure. At the same time, in the Pure Yang Temple of North Zhou, Immortal Chonghe was also facing a fatal attack. The Golden Emperor Queen Mother of the West waved her hand and created a vast and mighty golden ocean. This was Jasper Lake. It gathered the purest and most concentrated chi of metal in the world. The vast and mighty golden ocean crushed everything in the world. Everything in the world, everything that existed, was sliced into pieces by this endless golden chi. The three Pure Ones had already cut themselves off and gave everything to the target of Tao fruit. In a sense, the three Pure Ones didn't exist anymore. Without the three Pure Ones, they had to face the attack of the four Nirvana Realm experts. Little Meng, Gu Chongqing, and Chonghe were facing the biggest crisis of their lives. If nothing went wrong, they would definitely die. Of course, there would be accidents. The three Pure Ones weren't fools. Wouldn't they be courting death if they severed their bodies without any preparation? Namo Shakyamuni Tathagata. At this moment, a vast and mighty Zen sound rang between heaven and earth. A golden Buddha appeared in the void. One of his hands pointed to the sky and the other to the ground. In heaven and earth, he was the only one. This was Tathagata Buddha, the existence who had swallowed the Jianmu fruit and achieved half a Tao fruit. The Jianmu tree was also known as the Supreme Wisdom Tree. The fruit of the Supreme Wisdom Tree was also a Tao fruit. Unfortunately, the Tao fruit was not an external object. After swallowing the Builder Tree fruit, Tathagata unabashedly achieved half a Tao fruit. He could go up, but he couldn't go up. He'd go down, but he couldn't go down. Just like that, he was stuck there awkwardly. So, to him, helping the three Pure Ones to achieve Tao and then letting them beat him down to free him from this awkward situation was the only way. Tathagata was the backup plan of the three Pure Ones. Buddha is merciful. Save all living beings. The golden Buddha stretched out his hand and slapped. The mighty Buddha light covered the sky and earth. After all, half a Tao fruit was beyond the Nirvana realm. Under this attack, Amitabha, Kundi, Nuwa, and the Queen Mother of the West were all blocked by him. The Panga banner, the Taiji diagram, and the fairy slaying sword formation carried all the power and karma of the three Pure Ones. They broke through the void and fell toward Little Meng and the other two. In just a moment, everything would be settled. However, the ancient Nirvana Realm people were all used to playing dirty. They also had a lot of backup plans. Satisfied. At this moment, the sound of a cicada suddenly came from Spirited Mountain. A huge golden cicada suddenly rushed out from behind Spirited Mountain. It screamed shrilly and charged fiercely toward Tathagata. Golden cicada! Seeing this golden cicada, Tathagata let out a long sigh. This was what Tathagata left behind when he was reducing emptiness. The cicada shed its shell and then relied on the Jianmu fruit to achieve half a Tao fruit. Unfortunately, he took the wrong path back then. This golden cicada was Tathagata's weakness. Western Buddha is thoughtful. You can even find the golden cicada. This kind of secret was found by others. Tathagata knew that the matter of the three pure ones achieving Tao was probably not going to happen. Since Tathagata Buddha has achieved Tao, there's no need to be involved in karma anymore. Amitabha stretched out his hand and pointed. The golden cicada was instantly annihilated and turned into nothingness. As for Tathagata, the moment the golden cicada turned into nothingness, he was involuntarily repelled by heaven and earth. Half a Tao fruit was also beyond heaven and earth. Without the connection of the golden cicada, Tathagata was not in heaven and earth. Naturally, he couldn't interfere with the matters of heaven and earth. Three pure ones, you can't achieve Tao. At this moment, the four ancient Nirvana realm people already had victory in their hands. The three pure ones' target of reducing emptiness was definitely a dead end. Chapter 861. Amitabha. Amitabha. Amitabha chanted with a merciful smile on his face. Then, he slapped at Little Meng. At the same time, Kundi spawned the Tree of Seven Wonders and attacked Little Meng. Goddess Nviwa and the Queen Mother of the West also attacked Gu Changqing and Chonghe respectively, under the joint attack of the two oldest Nirvana realm people. Even if Little Meng absorbed everything from Ananda and achieved the Nirvana realm, he couldn't resist at all. Gu Changqing and immortal Chonghe were even worse. They were like ants that could be easily crushed. Panga Banner, Tai Chi Diagram, and Fairy Slaying Sword Formation were only half a step away from the three. But this half step seemed to be forever uncrossable. At this time, it's time for I to show up. In the ice valley of Songyue Kingdom, Liu laughed and stood up. He reached out his hand, and the glacier sword flew into Liu's hand. This is the last time for Bai Zhe to fight. Grabbing the ice river sword, he waved his hand and slashed out. Clang! The shrill sound of the sword soared into the sky. It was cold and silent. All things returned to the void, and all living beings returned to silence. It was like the final ending after the end of the world. Everything turned into nothingness, into nothingness. When the sword was swung, heaven and earth shook. The calamity aura that had gathered in this world for hundreds of millions of years suddenly rushed up and condensed in the sword. This world had already reached its end. It was about to welcome the final great destruction. Liu's sword only showed the characteristics of the Nirvana realm with the cultivation of Dharmakaya. It triggered the calamity aura of heaven and earth and swung out an earth-shattering sword. Heavenly sword Su Wuming was promoted to Dharmakaya. He had the characteristics of the legendary realm and was omnipresent. The original Little Meng was promoted to Dharmakaya and had the characteristics of the Nirvana realm. He had the power to change fate and karma. Now, Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe showed the characteristics of the Nirvana realm that were stronger than them. Under the guidance of the Calamity Aura at the end of the era, he swung out a Nirvana realm attack that was comparable to that of the oldest elders. Although it was unexpected, it was reasonable. Big Bosley didn't want to show his true form because the karma of this world was too heavy. He didn't want to leave behind the karma of this world after he left. That would be too troublesome. This is Brother White. Xiao Meng and Gu Changqing immediately recognized the sword. This was Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe. At this critical moment of life and death, at this critical juncture where there was no chance of survival, Bai Zhe resolutely made a move. Xiao Meng and Gu Changqing were both touched and shocked. Brother Bai actually has such strength to be able to deliver a blow equivalent to the Nirvana realm. Sword of Eradication. This shocking slash of the sword shocked all the Nirvana realm beings. How could there be such a person? How could there be such a person? The power of this sword was very strong, but to the ancient Nirvana realm people, it was not much of a threat. However, this sword was not meant to attack these Nirvana realm beings. It was merely meant to block their attacks. Boom! A violent explosion resounded. The golden Bodhi palm, the tree of seven treasures, the mountain and river map, and the Jasper Lake were all hindered by the sword. It was just a moment, but it was enough. At this moment, the Panga banner, the Tai Chi diagram, and the fairy slaying sword formation carried the cultivation of the three pure ones and their karma into the bodies of the three. Boom! The void shook, and the sky and earth changed color. Three auras that shook the sky, and earth shot up to the sky. The beginning of the world, the wood of the era, between the beginning and the end. The beginning of chaos, the law of order, and matter and energy. Everything came naturally, and everything was settled. One was 10,000, and the moment was eternity. At this moment, the imprints of the three people's souls crossed the endless time and space, traced back to the beginning of the world, and were branded at the beginning of the world. Then, from the beginning of the world until now, all time and space were branded with the imprints of the three people's souls. At this moment, the three of them experienced everything from the beginning of the world until now. The moment was eternity. At this moment, since the beginning of the world, the three pure ones have become heavenly primogenitor Su Ming, heavenly primogenitor Dao Chong He, and heavenly primogenitor Ling Bao Gu Changqing. The original three pure ones didn't exist anymore. In the hearts of all living beings in the universe, there was no original three pure ones, only the current three pure ones. Other than the Nirvana realm beings and the Fate Creator, the others didn't know what happened today. They didn't know that the three pure ones had all changed at this moment. So, I'm the heavenly primogen. Little Ming laughed and waved his hand. The Panga banner fell into his hand. With a shake, he blocked the attacks of Kundi and Ba. Tai Chi diagram out. Immortal Chong, he waved his hand, and the Tai Chi diagram flew out of his hand, blocking the golden light of the Queen Mother of the West Jasper Lake. Fairy slaying sword formation. Slash! 4 rays of sword light shot up to the sky and slashed the mountain river map that Niwa had smashed down. Then, the dust had settled, and all the fighting had lost its meaning. The three pure ones had achieved Tao, and the new three pure ones had appeared. The fruit of Tao of this era was gone, and it was meaningless to continue fighting. Ba let out a long sigh with a sorrowful expression. Then, he turned around and left. In the end, the three pure ones beat us to it. Kundi gritted his teeth and turned to leave as well. The hundreds of millions of years of fighting has ended today. It's a pity that my Tao can only wait for the next era. In the next era, it would need to be silent in the chaos and wait for the heavenly primogenitor to open the world again. That would be after the immeasurable calamity. Even Yuwa, the oldest Nirvana realm being who was immortal, felt that it was an endless time. The Golden Emperor and the Queen Mother of the West kept Jasper Lake and planned to return to her void hometown. Yes, the Ajati matriarch was the Queen Mother of the West disguise. Husband, I've been bullied. At this moment, little Ming heard Gu Xiaosong's voice. Husband, I'm the Queen Mother of the West fish, and also her target for reducing and seeking emptiness. Now that the fruit of Tao is gone, my existence will only weaken the Queen Mother of the West power. She will definitely kill me. Hearing Gu Xiaosong's words, little Ming laughed. I see. In the ancient times, the Queen Mother of the West was Hao Yin's wife. Now, Gu Xiaosong was also little Ming's wife. Everything was that simple. In the end, Gu Xiaosong is my wife. The Queen Mother of the West is someone else's wife. When my wife is bullied, I naturally have to stand up for her. So, don't blame me for being ruthless. With a wave of his hand, the Panga banner slashed through the air. Three pure ones as one, of one heart and one mind. Gu Changqing released the fairy-slaying sword formation without hesitation. Since they're bullying my sister-in-law, I can't just sit back and do nothing. Chong He released the Tai Chi diagram. After inheriting everything from the three pure ones, the new three pure ones were no worse than the real three pure ones. The Queen Mother of the West could not resist the three pure ones at all. After holding on for a while, she was hit in the head by the three precious jade rui, and her spirit was destroyed. Thank you, husband. Thank you, uncles. Gu Xiaosong gracefully walked over and bowed. Then she reached out and pointed at the corpse of the Queen Mother of the West. Like rivers returning to the sea, the Queen Mother of the West turned into a ray of light and fell between Gu Xiaosang's eyebrows. In an instant, Gu Xiaosang inherited everything from the Queen Mother of the West. She also became the Nirvana realm. All right, everything's done. I'm going to take back the last and biggest reward. Liu chuckled and looked up at the void. He looked at the three figures who had transcended the world but still had half a foot to step out of it. They were the three pure ones. The three pure ones who had attained Tao. Because there was still a layer of karma between them and Li Yu that had not been fully resolved. Chapter 862. Congratulations on achieving Tao fruit, fellow Taoists. Li Yu smiled and nodded at the void. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. By now, the three purities fully understood that Li Yu had been behind all of this. Fellow Taoist, since you've helped us achieve our Tao, we should settle this karma. Without doing so, the three purities wouldn't be able to leave this world. No matter what, this karma had to be settled. At this point, the three purities no longer had any treasures. In fact, they didn't even have their original cultivation. The only thing they had was a Tao fruit. Tao fruit isn't an external object. However, our experience can also be used as a reference for you. Three pure ones reached out and grabbed a wisp of the Tao fruit's aura. Three pure ones sent this wisp of Tao fruit's aura towards Li Yu. With that, the karma is settled. Goodbye, fellow Taoists. Li Yu nodded with a smile. With a wave of his hand, he collected the aura of their Tao fruits. Over the years, Li Yu had used the identity of Bai Zhe to cultivate the techniques of this world. At the same time, he'd analyzed the laws of heaven and earth contained within the builder tree. He'd already understood what a Tao fruit was. His roots weren't in this world, so he didn't need to achieve Tao fruit here. He'd helped the three purities achieve their Tao for the sake of their Tao fruits. Although I can't copy Tao fruits, studying the three purities' paths is still very helpful to me. Li Yu's own origin great Tao was the foundation. The Tao fruits of this world were at most a reference. He could absorb the benefits from them and integrate them into his own great Tao. Li Yu had no intention of changing his path. The path of the great Tao didn't tolerate half-heartedness. You had your Tao, and I had mine. Studying your Tao was only to improve my own. Li Yu had always been very clear about this. Whether it was becoming an immortal emperor with celestial Emperor Huang or comprehending Tao fruits here, they were all just appearances. His true goal lay in his own great Tao, the origin of matter, the origin of order, and the ultimate origin of chaos. When the three merged into one, it would become the origin of all time and space. This was Li Yu's own path. The Tao fruit could be used as a reference, but it would not be copied. This world has been ruined by me again. Li Yu chuckled. The counterfeit version of the three pure ones had become the real deal. The situation in the future would definitely be very different. However, all of this had nothing to do with Li Yu. What will the next epic be like? It's still worth looking forward to. Little Meng, the heavenly primogenitor, would reopen heaven and earth in the chaos after this world fell silent. Heaven and earth were destroyed, and all living things ceased to exist. There's no point for me to leave the shopping center behind. It will only vanish in a thin air when the era ends. Therefore, the master of Samsara system is very valuable. He reached out and took out Ananda's seal of Samsara. So, let the master of Samsara create a real creator space in this world. He pointed his finger, and the seal of Samsara instantly turned into a ray of light and merged with the master of Samsara. In that instant, the space of the 6 paths of reincarnation no longer existed. Everything had been absorbed by the Lord of Samsara. Little Meng, Gu Chanqing goodbye. Smiling and waving his hand, Li Yu's figure disappeared in an instant. There was no trace left in this world. The only thing left was the glacier swordsman, Bai Zhe, and his legendary battle record. 9 apertures perfected and killed the exterior. Just entered the exterior and defeated a grandmaster. The Dharmakaya blocked the Nirvana realm with his sword. Such a legendary battle record left countless people in this world shocked and inexplicable. However, this mythical figure suddenly disappeared one day. Even with the heavenly primogenitor Su Ming's ability, he could not find Bai Zai's whereabouts. He only knew that this person existed and was alive, but he did not know where he was. He had left behind an undefeated legend in this world, as well as a peerless inheritance. He had even created a clan that was revered by the world. The Zhang Bai family was the strongest family in the world, because they had the legendary glacier swordsman Bai Zai and the three pure ones as their backing. Of course, all of this had nothing to do with Li Yu. I'm back. His figure appeared in the immortal mansion. Seeing the familiar scene in front of him, a smile appeared on Li Yu's face. I've also received a few good things from this world. One was the Five-Finger Mountain, and the other was the Bodhi tree. The Five-Finger Mountain that had suppressed the monkey and Ananda possessed the essence of the other side. Unfortunately, it was refined using Buddhist techniques and was different from Li Yu's own path. This thing will be stored in the warehouse for now. When it's useful one day, it can be used as a material. As for the Bodhi tree, this was a true Bodhi tree that Buddha had comprehended the Tao. It was still fundamentally different from the Bodhi tree that Yi Fan had brought back from his world. The Bodhi tree in Fan's world was essentially the Bodhi immortal medicine. This thing will be planted in the garden of the immortal mansion. With a wave of his hand, he threw the Bodhi tree to Tung Qing and told her to plant it. With Bai Zai's cultivation experience and the three pure ones' comprehension of the Tao fruit, my understanding of the Tao fruit is already very clear. It's time to condense my own Tao fruit and integrate the power of the Tao fruit into my great Tao of origin. Letting go of his mind, Li Yu began to trace back all the additional selves of the myriad worlds and began to trace back to his past and present lives. Looking back in time, the past was still vivid in his mind. The poor people on Earth had accidentally transmigrated and activated the system. They were able to create all kinds of subsystems. Then, along the way, he pretended to be pretentious and plundered, creating the titles of Grand Emperorian, Heaven-Shrouding Great Emperor Yu Huang, Taoist Master Xianwang, Northern Heaven Middle Sky, Great Emperor Yu Huang, Great Heavenly Lord of Taiji, Creator, Lord God, and Ice River Swordsman. These past events had long been unified into one. They were all Li Yu himself, and there was no difference between self and additional self. However, when Li Yu continued to trace back the time, he was shocked to discover he had no previous life, nor did he have an afterlife. It's understandable that there's no afterlife. After all, at my level, eternal immortality is no longer a fantasy. But what's with no previous life? When Li Yu was on Earth, he was a poor person. Not only did he not have any supernatural abilities, he did not even have much money. How could such an ordinary person not have a previous life? Only saints like the three pristines who were born in the Nirvana realm did not have a previous life or an afterlife. I can't be a natural saint, right? Then, why don't I have a previous life? Li Yu was completely baffled by this. So, in essence, I have long been the only one in the myriad worlds. My previous life, present life, future life, past and future have long been integrated into one. Unable to understand why he did not have a previous life, Li Yu could only put this question aside and continue to condense his own Tao fruit. Then he saw the system. Although he could not see it clearly, he could already vaguely see a shadow. This was the first time he had discovered the existence of the system so far. What the heck? Li Yu was dumbfounded. Could it be this system of mine is actually a Tao fruit, or even an existence more awesome than Tao fruit? Chapter 863. It was a ball of light. It had no shape, no color, and it was impossible to tell if it really existed. There was only a faint shadow. This was the system. This was the first time Li Yu felt the existence of the system. The Tao fruit also has the characteristics of being unknowable, indescribable, and unpredictable. So, the system has the characteristics of the Tao fruit. Then, the most important question was whose Tao fruit was it? Of course, with Li Yu's insight, he could naturally see that the system was not as simple as the Tao fruit. It was even more mysterious than the Tao fruit. At this moment, the idea of a conspiracy emerged in Li Yu's mind. Some mastermind released the system to parasitize others, and then, when these hosts were fattened up, they were slaughtered and eaten one by one. After all, Li Yu himself had been a mastermind behind the scenes for many years, and he was very familiar with the little tricks of the mastermind behind the scenes. Could it be? The situation I'm facing is to fatten up and then kill? At this moment, Li Yu broke out in cold sweat. Xiao Meng was a fish raised by someone else. Could it be that I'm the same? System, then. Is it you? After taking a deep breath, Li Yu asked the system. Yes. From a strange ball of light, the system's cold and rigid voice sounded. System, what is the purpose of your existence? The system had no intelligence, no personality, only some rigid procedural rules. Therefore, Li Yu wanted to fish for information, to see if he could find any clues. If there was really a mastermind behind the scenes, he could always find some clues to assist the user to become a famous system supplier in the universe. The system gave an answer without hesitation, but this answer was very formulaic. Other than that, Li Yu naturally would not give up so easily and continue to probe. Execute all the user's orders. This answer was also very formulaic, but after hearing this, Li Yu had a thought. Execute all my orders? Then, what if I told you to self-destruct? Would you execute it? This was Li Yu's test. If it was really a fish raised by someone, then the system must be the fish net. It was impossible for a fish farmer to let the fish escape from the net. The user can command the system to self-destruct. However, the user's current cultivation base is not high enough. Activating self-destruction will result in serious consequences. It does not meet the system's self-destruct condition. The self-destruct command cannot be executed. Insufficient cultivation? Is it because of insufficient authority? Li Yu had expected that the system would not self-destruct. But the reason was due to a lack of cultivation. This was very strange. With Li Yu's current cultivation, he could be considered a top-notch existence in that world. How could the system say that his cultivation base was insufficient? What does the lack of cultivation have to do with your self-destruction? The self-destruction of the system will result in a violent space-time collapse. It would cause the user's currently known and unknown endless space-time to be completely annihilated and turned into chaos. With the user's current cultivation base, it is impossible to survive the collapse of the space-time dimension. Hearing this answer, Li was dumbfounded. You, a system self-destruct, actually want to destroy endless space-time? However, since the system was even more unfathomable than the Tao fruit, once it self-destructs, annihilating endless space-time was not impossible. But wasn't this an excuse? A seemingly reasonable excuse that hid the truth. System, you are lying. Li Yu directly cheated the system. What is lying? The system's rigid voice sounded again. This made Li Yu stunned. Only then did he react. The system had no intelligence. It did not know what lying was. But if he thought about it according to the conspiracy theory, wasn't all this a kind of disguise? Who could be sure that the system had no intelligence? System, what is your essence? Tao fruit? Or some other form? Li Yu changed his angle and once again probed the system's origin. According to the user's current understanding, the form of the system's existence has the characteristics of a Tao fruit, but is higher than a Tao fruit. Then, whose Tao fruit are you? Li Yu immediately raised this crucial question. The system is not a Tao fruit. The owner of the system is the user himself. All right, pretend I didn't ask. My own body? With my current realm, I can't create something as profound as you. Your words, I don't believe a single word. But, until now, Li Yu is still unable to truly understand everything about the system. It's a good thing that my cultivation was all cultivated by myself and not exchanged by the system. But the form of the system's existence, even with my current realm, I can't understand it. What is its origin? This question, there was no answer at all. If he couldn't even understand it, he couldn't even see it, let alone talk about how to fight against the system. At least for now, I haven't discovered any malicious intent from the system. Regarding the system's origin, he would have to face it in the future. But now, it was too early to talk about this. Maybe I'm thinking too much? Liu smiled and let go of this question. From the current point of view, the system did not have any adverse signs. Then he would use it as it was and wait until he had enough strength to face it. Without enough strength, there was no point in thinking too much. Throwing this question aside, Liu condensed the Tao fruit again. This time was very smooth. Liu fused the characteristics of the Tao fruit into his own origin of matter and origin of order. Everything went smoothly, and when the conditions were right, success came naturally. It was as if a piece of wallpaper was pasted on a wall that had been built long ago. It was very easy and very simple. As expected, my strength is actually not inferior to the Tao fruit. It's just that in some characteristics, it's not as deep as the Tao fruit. The Immortal Emperor realm focused on combat power and did not dig into the heart training aspect. From the perspective of the realm, the Tao fruit did indeed pay more attention to the heart training realm. In terms of combat power, the Immortal Emperor's destructive power was stronger. Time, space, matter, energy, the exploration and control of these things, the Tao fruit was more delicate and deeper. The power of the Immortal Emperor was more simple and crude. There was no fine manipulation, only crushing. One plays with manipulation, the other plays with instant kill. The direction is different, but in essence, it's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker. This was the difference between the arcane sorcerer and the fireball sorcerer. After the characteristics of the Tao fruit were integrated into the order origin and matter origin, Liu's control of matter, energy, order, and law became more delicate and detailed. In terms of the essence of strength, there is not much improvement. The path of my own primal chaos is still very far away. However, the control of strength has become more delicate. For example, Liu could now look back in time with a glance and see everything in his past. It was not like before, when he needed to use his own strength to reverse the long river of time. The method in the past was more crude, directly reversing the long river of time. Now, the method was to make use of the opportunity to squeeze through. This can be considered a very beneficial supplement and improvement. Liu nodded and stood up. He raised his eyes to the void and looked at the origin world. In this world, there is another he is about to wake up. This mystery also needs to be properly investigated. The child had recovered a lot and was almost fully recovered. The author finally let out a sigh of relief and also had the mind to write. Chapter 864. He is about to wake up. What kind of existence is this he? Since there was a he who was about to wake up in the main world, Liu naturally had to find out who this he was and why the Immortal Emperor was so scared that he hid everywhere and did not dare to show his face. Liu stepped out of the Immortal Mansion and came to the southern heaven region of the main world. After having the characteristics of a Tao fruit, it's a lot more convenient. Holding a strange bronze mirror in his hand, Liu smiled and nodded. If it was before, it would be a bit troublesome to search for clues. Now, with the characteristics of a Tao fruit, this kind of subtle operation was much more convenient. The primeval 9 seals, the principles of karma. The thousands of karma in the world can be seen in a glance. Reaching out and touching the bronze mirror, Liu traced all the past of this mirage mirror and all the karma of this mirage mirror. As expected, the past in time has been erased. Since the Mirage Immortal Emperor wanted to run away and hide his existence, he would certainly erase the traces of this mirage mirror in the long river of time. Unfortunately, karma can't be erased. The cultivation of this world did not pay much attention to the way of karma. This kind of cause and effect was like fatalism. In this world, no one had cultivated in this direction. In fact, this kind of cause and effect connection of all things is similar to my previous method of Book of Changes. Following the karma connection on the mirage mirror, Liu soon found a karma line. A karma line that led outside the southern heaven region. Outside the southern heaven region. The southern heaven region was vast and boundless. Even some immortal kings, the lords of heaven of the main world had not traveled all over the southern heaven region. Li Yu's travel in the southern heaven region had only been to the southern heaven region and the Tianshui region. There were still many places he had not been to. This karma line is the karma between the Mirage Mirror and the Mirage Immortal Emperor. Then, this place outside the southern heaven region must be one of the Immortal Emperor's cave mansions. With the Mirage Mirror broken, it was very likely that the Mirage Immortal Emperor had died. This cave abode might just be some ruins. However, a lot of information could also be found in the ruins. Last time, when I talked to Tianshui Zhenjuan, she mentioned that the northern part of Tianan province is the central province. This immortal's abode should be in the central continent. Li nodded and put away the Mirage Mirror. With a flash of his body, he broke through the void and followed the karmic line all the way to the central region in the north of the southern heaven region. At Li Yu's level, he could already control the power of space as he wished. The horizon was like a foot away. With a single step, he could traverse the endless void. However, Li Yu's step didn't lead him to his destination. It's actually a different space. When Li Yu arrived at the northernmost part of the southern heaven region, he stood on a towering mountain that seemed to reach the sky. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. He suddenly discovered that the southern heaven region and the central region in the north were actually in different spaces. No wonder many immortal kings haven't left the southern heaven region. It's because to leave the southern heaven region, one has to break through the space barrier. With Li Yu's strength, a mere space barrier was naturally not a problem. He stretched out his finger and pointed at the invisible space barrier. A ripple of light rippled like water. Li Yu stepped out and silently penetrated the space barrier and appeared in a void. It was dark and silent. It was a void. Except for the raging space turbulence, there was nothing else. It turns out that I have to pass through this void to reach this central region. Although spatial turbulence was very terrifying, to Li Yu, it did not count as anything. Ignoring the space turbulence, Li Yu followed the karma link and walked directly in the void. When the raging space turbulence swept to Li Yu's side, it was like a stream of water hitting a mountain, splashing countless turbulence. Li Yu was naturally not affected in the slightest. He walked leisurely and broke through the void. Soon, a world that seemed to be shrouded in a soap bubble appeared in front of him. The space barrier is like a soap bubble, enveloping the whole world. A soap bubble is a state. How many states are there in this world? Li Yu frowned slightly. He felt that the composition of the main world was a bit strange. This so-called state was very much like a separate world. Separate worlds, gathered together in the name of state, formed this main world as a whole. It seems that I have to spend some time studying the existence of the main world in the future. Li Yu always felt that the composition of this world was a bit strange. It seemed that there was something hidden behind it. The most important thing now was to find the cave mansion ruins of the Mirage Immortal Emperor. He walked to the front of the soap bubble and reached out to the space barrier. Like rippling water, Li Yu's figure instantly passed through the space barrier and came to the so-called central state. Demon, where are you running to? A dazzling lightning fell from the sky. The silver lightning was like a swimming dragon, snaking through the sky. In mid-air, a man in a Taoist robe, holding a long sword, pointed diagonally to the sky. The dazzling lightning condensed on the long sword, bursting out dazzling lightning. 9 heavens, Xian Sha, turn into divine lightning. Brilliant heavenly might, lead with the sword. The sound of the curse shook the world, and the power of the lightning was strong and mighty. But what the hell? Why does this sentence sound so familiar? Just after passing through the space barrier, Li Yu saw a righteous Jianghu person who seemed to be subduing demons. Li Yu naturally did not have the mind to pay attention to this kind of thing, but this sentence was too familiar. Divine sword lightning controlling technique. Blue Cloud sect. Could it be the so-called central state is actually related to Zhu Xian? But this power doesn't seem right. In front of him, the man in a Taoist robe, floating in midair, slashed out with his sword. Thunder roared and heaven and earth shook. The The sky was filled with lightning, and it actually turned into a vast sea of lightning. One after another, the lightning was like a real dragon, tearing apart the sky, destroying heaven and earth. Since when did Blue Cloud Sect's divine, sword lightning controlling technique have such fierce power? In Li Yu's impression of that world, the level of power should be very low. Even if it was a confrontation of the strongest power, it would only shatter a mountain. Compared to those worlds that could easily pierce through the earth, shatter stars, destroy worlds, and shatter galaxies, this little bit of power was simply insignificant. But this divine sword lightning controlling technique in front of him was clearly an enhanced version. This so-called central state, is it really the world in my impression? Only the martial strength has increased by one level. His heart was full of doubts. Li Yu was also somewhat curious about this so-called central state. It seems that these states of the origin world, I'm afraid there are many secrets. Chapter 865. If I want to know more about Zhongzhou, I need to get in touch with the natives there. The Taoist priest in front of him was the perfect person to talk to. Therefore, Li Yu decided to help him and get some information from him. The demon that the Taoist priest was attacking was a giant wolf covered in bloodlight. This blood wolf seemed to be formed by the bloodlight. After being struck by lightning many times, its body was broken up again and again, but it was reformed again and again. It smells like the Azura demonic technique. Li Yu glanced at it and found that this blood wolf was similar to the blood god sun. It was between a physical body and an energy form. Although the power of lightning was constantly depleting the blood wolf's energy, it was not something that could be killed in a short time. Fellow Taoist, let me help you, Li Yu shouted and pulled out his sword. A grand and righteous aura rose into the air and soared into the sky, grand and upright, like the sun rising from the east. Demon, take my sword. The sword slashed out like the sun in the sky, shining brilliantly and illuminating the world. Benevolence, integrity, wisdom, courage. Righteous chi, cleansing the sky. A long and mournful howl. The giant blood-red wolf instantly vanished into thin air under the radiance that was as bright as the sun. Li Yu stood in the air, looking elegant and righteous. Anyone who saw him would praise him. What a young hero of a righteous path. What a young hero. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. The man in the Taoist robe in the air saw Li Yu's graceful and righteous appearance. He immediately had a good impression of Li Yu and greeted him with a smile on his face. I am Qing Su. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Thank you for your help just now. Otherwise, the blood demon would have wreaked havoc on the world. The young man in the Taoist robe landed in front of Li Yu and bowed, thanking Li Yu. I am Gu Chanqing. Li Yu smiled and returned the greeting. He was secretly laughing in his heart. Young Gu, it's your honor that I'm using your name. Using alternate accounts and wearing sock puppets have become Li Yu's habit. So it's Brother Gu. Taoist priest Qing Su smiled. Brother Gu's sword strike just now was just and honorable, like the sun rising from the east. Could it be the Haoran sect's sunrise sword art? That's not it. As a newcomer, Li Yu did not even know what Haoran sect was. Therefore, it was inappropriate for him to impersonate Haoran sect. He could only vaguely explain, this is my family's swordsmanship, Haoran sword. Gu Changqing's Haoran sword was originally a swordsmanship that Li Yu had casually created from the artistic conception of the Song of Morality. It was just right to use it here. Haoran sword? Taoist priest Qing Su blinked his eyes and cursed in his heart. Brother, who doesn't know the Haoran sword of the Haoran sect? Wasn't the sunrise sword art one of the Haoran swords? You say it's not Haoran sect, but it's Haoran sword. What are you doing? However, Taoist priest Qing Su could not pursue it. Since Gu Changqing did not want to use the name of Haoran sect, then let him be. Brother Gu, did you come to the Luohan Mountains to gain experience? People of the Diabolism suddenly appeared in the Luohan Mountains. I'm afraid this experience will not be so easy. Brother Gu, why don't you and I go together? We can take care of each other. What do you think? Yu's righteousness had won Taoist priest Qing Su's deep trust. In addition, he guessed that Yu came from Howren's sect. Naturally, he wanted to invite Yu to go together. Huh. Yu smiled and thought, I don't have the time to play experience games with you guys. I've told you so much just to find some information from your memory. During this conversation, Yu silently copied a copy of Taoist priest Qing Su's soul memory. Young man, I'm not here to gain experience. With the memory in hand, Yu is not in the mood to talk nonsense with Taoist priest Qing Su. Meeting is fate. I'll give you an opportunity. With a flick of his finger, a majestic Howren chi fell between Taoist priest Qing Su's eyebrows. Boom! Taoist priest Qing Su only felt a loud noise in his mind. Like the scorching sun hanging high, endless brilliance illuminated the entire soul sea of consciousness. There is righteousness in heaven and earth, and chaos gives form. Below is the river, above is the sun and the stars. A banner full of words slowly unfolded in Taoist priest Qing Su's mind. One by one, the brilliant words shone. Every stroke was like a sharp sword light. The Howren chi soared into the sky. Howren's sword? Taoist priest Qing Su was dumbfounded. Senior, I'm a disciple of the righteous sect. You taught me the unique skill of the Howren sect. Should I learn it or not? If I learn the Howren sword, I could only betray the sect and join the Howren sect. This is deceiving the master and destroying the ancestors. If I don't learn it, this is the most powerful, unique skill in the world. If I don't learn it, the heavens will not tolerate it. On one hand, deceiving the master and destroying the ancestors. On the other hand, the heavens will not tolerate it. At this moment, Taoist priest Qing Su's heart was in a dilemma. Big Boss Li said, do whatever you want. This central state is actually not the world I imagined. After copying a copy of Taoist priest Qing Su's memory, Liu is no longer ignorant of this Zhongzhou. From Qing Su's memory, this Zhongzhou was completely different from the world of Zhu Xian that Liu guessed. There was no Blue Cloud sect, no Zhang Xiaofan, and even the scenery of heaven and earth was completely different. It was not the same world at all. That lightning-controlling godly sword was created by the ancestor of the righteous sect. The ancestor of the righteous sect was also surnamed Zhang. What the hell could it be that Zhang Xiaofan, that guy, transmigrated here? Well, the ancestor of the righteous sect had disappeared for God knows how many years. Even a transmigrator would not be able to find him. The level of power in Zhongzhou is also heavenly man, heavenly monarch, and heavenly master. The righteous sect, where Qing Su was from, had heavenly monarch in the past, but heavenly man has been rare these years. Liu shook his head. The memory that he obtained from Qing Su's mind was just common knowledge of the Jianghu. As for the Howren sect, it was the top Confucian sect in the world and had heavenly monarchs. However, the ancestor who wrote the Song of Righteousness and created the Howren sword was surnamed Wenshan and was called Immortal Lushan. This name is very familiar. Wen Tianxiang, isn't that the name? First Zhang Xiaofan, then Wen Tianxiang. Is this Zhongzhou a broken sieve? Has it been worn out? Li was speechless. Well, even he himself had transmigrated here, so he had no right to criticize others. Maybe the Zhang Xiaofan and Wen Tianxiang, who transmigrated here, disappeared a long time ago. From Qing Su's memory, the ancestor of the righteous sect and the ancestor of the Howren sect had disappeared for countless years. If they were not dead, then they must have. He became heavenly masters and then went into hiding. Li took a deep breath. A transmigrator and he who was about to wake up. There were many secrets in this world. Let's not talk about anything else for now. I should go to the abode of the Mirage Immortal Emperor and take a look. Following the Karma link, Liu took a step forward, traversed the sky, and arrived at the top of a lofty mountain. Mirage Immortal Emperor, I hope you can leave behind some useful information. Liu waved his hand, opened the door of the abode, and stepped into the abode left behind by the Mirage Immortal Emperor. Chapter 866. There are also countless hidden Dharma arrays. Stepping into the cave abode, there were also countless layers of hidden Dharma arrays in front of him. How terrifying is that person who is about to wake up? To be able to scare an immortal emperor who is also a heavenly venerate of this world to this extent? Liu shook his head. At the immortal emperor level, everything was fake and only one was real. His ego had already been strengthened to the peak, so how could he still be scared to this extent? Shouldn't distracting thoughts like fear be easily cut off? Since even the Mirage Immortal Emperor is scared to this extent that he must be unimaginably terrifying. I have to make preparations early. A sense of urgency arose in his heart. Liu realized that there were still a few mountains pressing down on his head. One was the system. If there was really a possible master behind the system, then that person would be Liu's greatest enemy. The other was naturally this he. To be able to scare all the immortal emperor heavenly venerates of the origin world to the point that they did not dare to show their faces and were all thinking of ways to hide, it must be unimaginably terrifying. I'm afraid it's not inferior to the guy who crippled an immortal emperor with a drop of blood from the heavenly emperor Huang in high heavens. Even with Li Yu's current cultivation and knowledge, it was difficult for him to understand what kind of power could cripple an immortal emperor with a drop of blood. What was the essence of that power? The darkness immortal emperor, who was eroded by the power of darkness, was still kept in the resource vault. However, the power of darkness was no longer the original drop of blood. Only the power of darkness at the immortal emperor level did not exceed the understanding of the essence of power. Shaking his head, Liu collected his thoughts and focused on the cave abode of the Mirage Immortal Emperor in front of him. The cave abode was not big, only a small space with a radius of 100 feet. As if to hide, the cave abode of the Mirage Immortal Emperor did not have the slightest bit of an Immortal Emperor atmosphere. It was much more shabby than the cave abodes of ordinary cultivators. There were no gorgeous decorations or grand atmosphere. Other than the layers of hidden Dharma arrays, there were only a few simple stone rooms. In the middle was the main hall, and there were small stone rooms on both sides. There were only 3 rooms in the cave abode of the Mirage Immortal Emperor. The main hall was the place to meditate and cultivate qi. It was empty except for a futon. Liu glanced around the main hall, but didn't find anything. No message. Liu was a little disappointed that he didn't find anything in the main hall. He continued to walk to the rooms on both sides. The room on the left was a bedroom. There was only a bed and nothing else in it. It can't be that nothing is left behind, right? After running such a long way, it can't be for nothing, right? Liu felt a little depressed as he walked towards the last room. Fortunately, there's something here. Stepping into the room, Liu saw a row of bookshelves in front of him and heaved a sigh of relief. There must be some information left behind in these books. Notes of the Mirage? Casually picking up a book, he saw the words, Notes of the Mirage, written on the cover. Liu's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at the bookshelf and saw that there were hundreds of books on it. They were all ancient legends and biographies. It seems that the Mirage Immortal Emperor is also studying what he is. Liu nodded. I like to see what he has studied. He reached out and opened the Notes of the Mirage. A line of messy and bloody handwriting appeared on the title page. It seemed to be written by the Mirage Immortal Emperor with his own blood. No one can escape. No one can escape. He's about to wake up. Why? Why? Why does he want to kill all the celestial venerables? I can't accept this. The blood-red words seemed to be filled with cries of despair. It was as if they were looking at an immortal emperor who was struggling desperately, but still couldn't escape death. In the end, he let out an unwilling roar in despair. Kill all the celestial venerables? Liu's heart skipped a beat, and his hair stood on end. Could it be that all the celestial venerables in this world have been killed by that? Then what about me? I'm also a celestial venerable. I'll definitely face this calamity. It's like a sharp sword is hanging over my head, and I don't know when it will fall. Once this sword falls, will I be like the Mirage Immortal, only able to roar in despair and unwillingness, powerless to do anything? No one can escape? I don't believe it. Clenching his fists, Liu let out a long breath. He reached out and opened the Mirage Immortal Emperor's notes. My name is Sheng Lu. I was born in the Anyuan prefecture of Jiang province. I used the mirror flower water moon art to attain the Tao. People call me Empyrean Mirage. The first few pages were Empyrean Mirage Immortal's self-introduction. Liu glanced over, but didn't look at it in detail. All this time, I thought that the heavenly monarch realm was the highest realm in this world. Until one day, I suddenly had an epiphany. I realized the essence of reality and illusion. I understood the truth and illusion of the heart. I made a breakthrough. I was very happy because I stepped onto a path that no one before me had stepped onto, and I opened up a new era, an era of celestial venerables. However, one day, I accidentally discovered a ruin, the ruin of an Empyrean mansion. At this time, I realized that I wasn't the first Empyrean. Then I began to think, since I wasn't the first Empyrean, then where did all the Empyreans in this world go? I began to search. I traveled all over the world to find the truth. Finally, I found the truth. There was a terrifying devil hidden in this world. He was ferocious and bloody, and his demonic might was monstrous. He killed all the Empyreans. 800,000 years ago, the ancestral master of the righteous sect, the devil-rinsing Empyrean, was preaching in the main hall of the righteous sect. The skies suddenly darkened, and the devil-rinsing Empyrean disappeared without a trace, leaving only a pool of dirty blood. In the same year, the ancestral master of the Howran sect, Empyrean Lu Shan, suddenly let out a scream when he was in seclusion. He disappeared without a trace, leaving only a pool of dirty blood. In the same year, Wu Wei Tianzuan of the Southern Heaven State also disappeared, leaving only a pool of dirty blood. I found a lot of such secrets. In all the states in the world, almost all the surviving Empyreans disappeared in the same year, or even on the same day, leaving only a pool of dirty blood. I continued to search, almost going to all the places in the world. Finally, I discovered a truth. Every million years, all the Empyreans in the world will be killed and turned into dirty blood. It's like a ferocious beast. Every million years, it wakes up once and eats once. His food is the Empyreans. It's been 800,000 years since the last time he woke up. He is about to wake up. The notes ended here. Empyrean Mirage was in existence from millions of years ago. What time is it now? How long is there until the new 1 million year period? Liu closed the notes, his eyes shining, seeing through time. With Empyrean Mirage as the benchmark, the time was soon determined. Another 1 million year cycle is coming. At this moment, Liu's face was gloomy. Now, there were less than 10 years left from the 1 million year time limit. 10 years might be a long time to mortals, but to an eternal and indestructible existence like Liu, 10 years was a blink of an eye. Once that he woke up, it would be an imminent disaster. I have to increase my strength as soon as possible. With a life and death crisis imminent, Liu is already very anxious in his heart. Chapter 867. On the verge of death. Compared to the sword light and net of the past, the present him was countless times more terrifying, countless times more savage. How terrifying was an existence that fed on Empyreans. The Empyreans recorded in the Mirage's notes were nothing more than pools of blood. This was the best proof of this. Liu could already imagine this scene in his mind. An unknown giant beast opened its mouth and swallowed. With a bite of its giant teeth, an Empyrean was swallowed up without any ability to resist, leaving behind only a pool of blood. Of course, it might not be a beast shape, but some other shape. But there was no difference. For me, if it was purely fleeing for my life, perhaps I could hide in another world. But since this him can even casually swallow an Empyrean, who knows if he has the ability to chase me to another world. Liu took a deep breath and pressed down on the hilt of his sword at his waist. More importantly, I cannot shrink back. Once he shrank back, once fear arose in his heart, his Tao heart would become unstable and he would not be able to advance any further. then the final outcome would only be to wait for death. Like Emperor Mirage, he had been frightened to the point of being unable to find the light of day. But in the end, he still died. Since he was going to die, then why not fight to the death? You want to eat me? Then we'll have to see how good your teeth are. With a shake of his wrist, the profound yellow sword left its scabbard. Sword energy that could annihilate all things soared into the sky. Although I've been behind the scenes for a long time, although I've always been playing tricks and scheming, the hot blood in my heart still hasn't cooled down. 10 years from now, a life and death duel. As if issuing a challenge, Liu's face was ice cold. He stood proudly, his hard spine not bending in the slightest. His fighting spirit soared to the heavens. A firm will, a fighting spirit that would never give up, an unyielding fighting spirit that had never disappeared. Taking a deep breath, Liu turned around and stepped out, returning to the immortal estate space. 10 years of time was already very tight. However, Liu had far more than 10 years to travel through the other world. 10 years was equivalent to 3,650 days. 1 day in the main world was 1 year in the other world. Liu still had 3,650 years. This period of time was enough for Liu to raise his strength to another level. When the time comes, let's see if your teeth are sharper or if my sword is sharper. Sheathing his sword, Liu returned to the main hall of the immortal mansion, ready to start a new round of his journey. With a life and death crisis right before his eyes, he had no time to waste. From now on, I can only stay in each world for 100 years at most. More than 100 years is a waste of time. 100 years in one world, and there were still more than 30 chances to travel to another world. Liu could also collect the laws of heaven and earth of over 30 worlds, as well as the power systems of over 30 worlds. With these accumulations, Liu was confident that he could advance his cultivation further. At that time, he would have to see what kind of person he was. System, open the next world. So far, he had completed the missions of 9 worlds. This world was the 10th one. The mission of the 10 worlds was completed, and the system's authority level had been upgraded. Hopefully, there would be a new surprise. Although the existence of the system could also be dangerous, compared to the current crisis, the system's danger was still in the guesswork stage. Now, Liu had to face the heat of the main world, so he could not care about the possible dangers of the system. With a command, the familiar roulette once again appeared in front of Liu. On the roulette, there were many grids showing all kinds of worlds. Liu was not in the mood to look carefully. With a wave of his hand, the roulette rapidly rotated. Stop! The roulette abruptly stopped. Sorcerer God? The world in front of him made Liu slightly stunned. It's actually this world. The world of the Sorcerer God and the desolate world that Liu was familiar with had some similarities. It was also the creation of heaven and earth by Pangu, and it also had the 3 pure ones. However, the power system of this world was divided into the sorcerer who cultivated the body, the chi cultivator, who cultivated the primordial spirit, and the invaders from other worlds who were born with divine abilities. This was a vast and boundless universe. The world that Pangu created was only one of the countless worlds. In the boundless void, there were many worlds. There were even some worlds that had not completed their evolution and were still in the state of primordial chaos. For me, comprehending the primordial chaos and the creation of heaven and earth will help me further speed up the cultivation of the origin of primordial chaos. Liu is also very interested in this sorcerer god's era. Whether it is the divine abilities of the other races or the cultivation methods of the 3 races of Pangu, dragon, phoenix, and human, they're all worth learning. Of course, the biggest benefit is that I can find the creator of heaven and earth in this world. This is very valuable to me. In this world, there were creators who had invaded Pangu continent, creators who had died, creators who only had remnant souls left, and creators who were still in the process of being born. These were all harvests. If he caught them and studied them fiercely, he would understand the process of the birth of order in the primordial chaos and the principle of life in the primordial chaos. It would be very valuable for Li Yu to cultivate the origin of primordial chaos. I have already obtained a copy of my understanding of primordial chaos from the Lord of Heaven. However, this is still not enough. Only by studying and arguing from many sides can I obtain the most correct answer. Comprehending the primordial chaos was like a blind man touching an elephant. Everyone had their own understanding. However, what Liu needed was not such a one-sided understanding, but a comprehensive understanding of primordial chaos. If he wanted to transform into primordial chaos, he naturally had to figure out what primordial chaos was. Perhaps this world alone was far from enough. However, this would still allow Liu to accumulate a sufficient amount of experience. Let's go. With a thought, Liu's figure instantly disappeared, and he embarked on a new journey. Time and space changed, and in an instant, he had changed into another world. In front of him was a bustling modern city. The lights were brilliant, and the traffic was heavy. This was a city at night. More importantly, the people who walked on the road were all barbarians with deep eyes, long noses, and thick hair of all colors. I've actually come to the era before the protagonist traveled back in time. A light flashed, and Liu's figure instantly turned into nothingness, hiding his traces. Boom! Lightning flashed, and dark clouds rolled. Torrential rain poured down, and in an instant, a layer of rainwater accumulated on the ground. The sky gradually darkened, and a hazy mist filled the air, making the whole world even darker. Only in the center of the city, there was a building made of glass, shaped like a pyramid, and bright lights illuminated the sky. That's the place where the protagonist came to fight for the treasure. Liu's figure floated past and flew toward the glass building. Silently floating into the glass building, Liu saw the antiques displayed inside were obviously of the divine prefecture style, and a wave of anger rose in his heart. Especially when he saw the 1-foot-tall 5-colored, 3-legged cauldron with dragons and phoenixes entwined around it. Liu was even more furious. You barbarians, how dare you covet the treasures of the divine prefecture? You're courting death. Chapter 868. After the protagonist travels back in time, I'll deal with you. This place was the key point for the protagonist to take back the treasure of the divine land and travel back in time. But you could not destroy it for the time being. He waited quietly. The night was getting darker, and the thunderstorm was getting heavier. Amidst the hazy mist, a piece of mist suddenly floated silently, slowly drifting towards the glass building. Swoosh! Lines of water sprang up like poisonous snakes and instantly wrapped around the necks of the patrolling soldiers around the glass building. As the water lines tightened, the soldiers fell down silently. Water manipulation technique? That's something. Liu looked at the drifting mist and the lines of water and nodded with a smile. As expected of a main character, in this Dharma-ending age, he can still create a chi refinement technique that cultivates the primordial spirit. At this time, the mist had drifted to the entrance of the glass building. Another stream of water gushed up like a sharp blade, instantly cutting into the gaps of the glass building. The cables were cut off by the water blades. Except for the lights, all the other security devices were useless. I must take back the cultural relics unearthed in the ancient capital of Liangzhu of the Divine Land. The mist shook slightly and a figure appeared. It was a young man. He was wearing a black suit and was tall and slender. He was handsome. His body, which was not very strong, contained a terrifying power. He was a man known as the strongest human in the world, codenamed Azure Dragon. The Dragon and Phoenix Cauldron. It's really here. Azure Dragon immediately saw the 1-foot-long ancient cauldron on a crystal glass stand in the center of the glass building. However, there were also dozens of skeletons that seemed to be cast from gold in the exhibition stands around the ancient cauldron, shining with golden light. What surprised Azure Dragon was that there was an oval-shaped hole between the eyebrows of these skeletons. 3 eyes, a vertical eye between the eyebrows. The appearance of these skeletons was somewhat similar to the legendary figures of the ancient myths. Azure Dragon stared at them for a while. He pulled out his dagger and cut the golden skeleton. The sound of metal hitting metal was heard. It's so hard. Azure Dragon was slightly shocked. The dagger in his hand was made of a special alloy, but could not leave any mark on the skeleton. It seemed that the origins of these skeletons were not simple. Azure Dragon secretly praised in his heart. He no longer paid attention to these skeletons and turned to walk in front of the five-colored ancient cauldron. The cauldron is a national treasure. Such a precious treasure of the divine prefecture naturally cannot fall into the hands of barbarians. Azure Dragon reached out and pressed his hand on a glass display case where the five-colored ancient cauldron was stored. He frowned slightly. A bulletproof glass more than a foot thick? What a tight security. Raising his head and looking at the side door, Azure Dragon chuckled again. Hey, if you don't come out, I'll take my things and leave. Mr. Azure Dragon is indeed extraordinary. The side door opened, and a team of more than 20 armed figures walked out from behind the door. Walking at the front was a cold-looking woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. She held a jade sword in her hand. However, Mr. Qinglong shouldn't have come this time. The blonde woman sneered with the jade sword in her hand. Mr. Azure Dragon, I'm afraid even you don't understand how terrifying your ancestors' things are. The jade sword vibrated slightly, and a gust of wind sounded. A huge crack was silently cut open on the 5-inch thick alloy steel plate on the ground. This sword once cut an armored car in half. I have to say that your Huaxiao antiques are unimaginably powerful. The blonde woman pointed the jade sword at Azure Dragon. Unfortunately, the treasures left by your ancestors now belong to us. The strongest human on Earth, you. Can you block this sword? No matter how sharp the sword is, it has to be able to hit its target. Azure Dragon chuckled and pressed his hand. Crash! The crystal display case where the five-colored ancient cauldron was placed shattered into pieces. Hiss! Seeing this, the blonde woman and the others took a deep breath. The bulletproof glass, more than a foot thick, was shattered with just a touch. The strongest human on Earth was indeed terrifying. The five-colored ancient cauldron is indeed a precious treasure of the divine prefecture. Azure Dragon reached out and grabbed the five-colored ancient cauldron in his hand. A tremor arose spontaneously, as if the bloodline resonated, rose in his heart. Holding this ancient cauldron, Azure Dragon felt that he was holding the whole world, the whole universe in his hand. Of course, it's the whole universe. Young man, you're holding Pangu in your hand. Liu smiled and nodded slightly. This five-colored cauldron contained Pangu's remnant soul after the creation of the world. This was Azure Dragon's golden finger. Liu naturally wouldn't interfere. Mr. Azure Dragon, do you think you've won? The blonde woman knew that even if she had the unreasonably sharp jade sword in her hand, she was no match for Azure Dragon in close combat. However, she still had a backup plan. With a sneer, the girl took out a roll of golden bamboo slips and opened it. Boom! With an earth-shattering roar, dozens of golden skeletons sitting cross-legged on the display case shot out a bloody light from the 3 dark eye sockets on their heads. Buzz! The bloody light intertwined and formed a bloody array, firmly imprisoning Azure Dragon inside. No matter how hard Azure Dragon struggled, he couldn't get rid of it. Do you see? This is your ancestors' thing. It's called Array. Yes, that's the name. The blonde woman raised the jade sword in her hand and sneered. Mr. Azure Dragon, tell me, can I cut you now? Damn it. Azure Dragon was furious. It's an item of the divine prefecture, but these barbarians used it against me. How hateful. The strongest man on Earth. I wonder if you'll die after I cut off your head? The blonde woman's face was ferocious, and the jade sword in her hand was raised high. Boom! Crack! At this moment, a clap of thunder sounded in the sky. Endless lightning flashed, and dark clouds rolled in the sky. Between the lightning and the dark clouds, there seemed to be an unimaginably huge snake stirring the wind and clouds and shaking the world. Nuwa, you're finally here. Is this the person you've chosen? You and Panga chose him at the same time to let him reverse time and space and change the ending. Looking at the churning thunderclouds in the sky and the enormous snake body, Liu's face was full of smiles. Crack! A purple thunderbolt fell from the sky, and endless lightning swept toward the crystal building. Boom! The violent roar was earth-shattering, as if the earth was going to be penetrated. The huge glass building was instantly shattered. The golden skeletons instantly burst into powder, and the blonde woman and the others were vaporized. Everything was annihilated and turned into dust. Even Azure Dragon's body dissipated at this moment. The five-colored ancient cauldron rolled and rolled up Azure Dragon's divine soul and rushed into the purple thunderbolt. After the thunderbolt dissipated, the five-colored ancient cauldron and Azure Dragon's divine soul had disappeared without a trace. Time travel? Liu nodded. Then I'll go too. Turning his head to look at the barbarian land, Liu frowned again. He pointed to the sky and used the order origin to trigger the Tao of heaven and earth. In the name of order, if any barbarian touches the cultural relics of the divine prefecture, he will be punished by the heavens. The Tao of heaven and earth was the Tao of heaven and earth. From this moment on, all the barbarians who plundered and occupied the cultural relics of the divine prefecture died in various accidents. Someone was discussing this book? It was only half written. It was still too early. It was just a foreshadowing in advance. Chapter 869. So this is the primordial era. After fusing the characteristics of the Tao fruit into his origin, traveling through time had become extremely easy. Silently, Liu crossed the river of time and arrived in the primordial era. This was different from the earth-shaking commotion caused by celestial Emperor Huang. With the Tao fruit's micromanipulation characteristics, Liu's reversal of time and return to the primordial era was completely silent and effortless. Before him was a vast expanse of desolate land. On this vast and boundless land, mountains towered, ancient trees towered into the sky, and ferocious beasts howled and roared. What was even more surprising was that there were small floating islands in the air. Shrouded in clouds and mist, it was like an immortal paradise. This kind of floating island terrain is rather interesting. Liu's figure flickered, and he instantly landed on one of the floating islands high in the sky. Clouds and mist swirled around him, giving him a somewhat ethereal appearance. Looking up at the horizon, Liu's gaze pierced through the void and took in the entire world. There are 5 continents. East, west, south, and north are all the great wilderness. The Central Plains was originally the center of human civilization, but alas, it's been invaded by another world. Liu could already see that the vast Central Plains was currently engulfed in the flames of war. Scenes of slaughter could be seen everywhere. On one side was the well-equipped alien race, and on the other was the human race, who didn't even have a complete set of weapons and armor. Although I don't want to admit it, but in truth, the human race of this world, whether it's in terms of civilization or technology, is still very far behind the alien race. Those alien races were invaders from another world. Given the current situation, Liu felt that it was a little like the Americas of the Age of Discovery. The alien race was equivalent to the Europeans of the Age of Discovery, and the human race of this world was equivalent to the Indians of the Americas. No wonder the battle was so difficult. No wonder the alien race had not been pushed back after so many years. No wonder Niwa and Pangu had set their sights on the Azure Dragon from the future. The young man favored by the heavens, the future savior, is you? Liu turned his head and looked down. Outside a fiery red mulberry forest, on a floating island that wasn't too high, stood an 11 or 12-year-old boy. It was a very boorishly dressed young man. His chest was bare, his hair loose, a piece of animal skin wrapped around his waist, and a necklace of animal teeth hung around his neck. Although his tall and straight figure and handsome face added a bit of handsomeness, the beast-sex outfit made him exuded a ferocious aura. Squatting beside the youth was a gigantic 300-foot-long, pitch-black crow with feathers that were like black iron. It was a crow. All right, this was the main character. Back in time, the strongest man on Earth was now a young man from the Fire Crow clan in the southern wasteland, named Ji Hao. Is it true that everyone with the name Hao is awesome? For example, Sure Hao, or this Ji Hao? Liu smiled and shook his head. In this world, there is no one who can understand the joke of fuck the heavens. Looking at the young man named Ji Hao, Liu's face was full of smiles. Of course, the reason why he was smiling was not because of Ji Hao, but because, Pangu, I'm going to trick you. I think you won't mind. Yes, Liu's going to trick Pangu. If the Pangu of this world was in his heyday, his strength should not be inferior to Liu's. However, the current Pangu was only left with a divine soul. More importantly, the Pangu of this world, he didn't know how to cultivate the primordial spirit. Just thinking about it made him want to cry. The dignified God of creation, the great being who created the world, was actually a boorish man. His body was incomparably strong, and his divine soul was incomparably huge, but he didn't know how to cultivate the primordial spirit. As a result, he was tricked miserably. I want to study the primordial chaos, and the memories of Pangu's divine soul are naturally worth learning from. Another reason is that the Pangu of this world has the Jade Disc of Fortune. What was the Jade Disc of Fortune? According to Liu, it was the manifestation of all the laws of heaven and earth in this Pangu world. Such a thing was right in front of him, and it was really too difficult to stop Liu from trying to steal it. I just want to learn from it. I won't steal it from you. Liu chuckled, and his figure flashed, instantly turning into nothingness. In the next moment, Liu, who had turned into nothingness, silently came to the side of the Beast Faction youth. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt at all. With a strange smile on his face, Liu pointed his finger, and time stopped, and everything returned to stillness. With a wave of his hand, an invisible wave swept across, and the youth disappeared in an instant, taken into the resource vault by Liu. In the blink of an eye, Liu made a copy of all the laws of heaven and earth contained in the Jade Disc of Good Fortune from Pangu's soul memories. This Azure Dragon actually has such talent? Liu was about to release the youth again, but he discovered that in the youth's memories, there was also a cultivation technique called the 9 Words Mantra. In the Age of Doom, he actually created such a cultivation technique. Although it is still crude, it is still very extraordinary. Liu discovered that the Azure Dragon's self-created 9 Words Mantra pill scripture actually originated from Lin Bing Doja. Lin Bing Doja and Lin Bing Doja and Lin Bing Doja and Lin Bing Doja and Lin Bing Doja. I'm still thinking about how to end this karma. Since you have the 9 Words Mantra, I might as well teach you the 9 secrets. With a flick of his finger, the 9 secrets of that world was sent into the youth's soul by Liu. All right, karma is settled. With a wave of his hand, the youth was released once again. Liu's figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. Ugh, just now, when time flowed again, the youth suddenly felt a sense of panic. He vaguely felt that something had happened, but it also felt like nothing had happened. Old man, did something happen just now? Ji Hao asked Pangu, who was hiding in the depths of his sea of consciousness. As the strongest man on Earth and the Azure Dragon, who had experienced countless schemes and schemes, he didn't really trust this old man who always followed him around. It's been more than 10 years, and our great god Pangu still hasn't been able to trick Ji Hao over. Big Boss Lee, he was extremely sympathetic. You chose the wrong host. This kind of person with a rich life experience was not so easy to fool. No, great god Pangu's divine soul stood on the Good Fortune Jade Disc and answered with certainty. In fact, speaking of which, it was all tears. The dignified great god Pangu had a powerful divine soul, but he didn't know any methods to cultivate the primordial spirit. He couldn't unleash the power of his divine soul at all. He had even been thinking about the youth's self-created 9 Words Mantra for 10 years. Even now, this guy still hadn't relented. Even if it was an exchange of cultivation techniques, He wouldn't do it. Thinking of me. Sigh with a long sigh. Pangu remained silent. The path of deception. It was still very long. Chapter 870. Little guy, what do you think of my previous proposal? Pangu did not give up and started to trick him again. My heaven-mending no-leak true technique allows you to refine all things and strengthen yourself. Your body is so weak now. If you learn my technique, you will have strength that surpasses that of a true dragon cub. Yes, that's right. I can also give you the bloodline of the dragon and phoenix clans. The dragon clan has Pangu's strong physical talent. The phoenix clan has Pangu's enormous soul talent, and the human clan has Pangu's unlimited potential. When the three are combined, you will have a trace of Pangu's true body characteristics. I will use this to exchange with a 9 syllables technique. How about it? Unfortunately, the higher the price Pangu offered, the greater the suspicion in the youth's heart. You're already so powerful, you can take out such an awesome thing. Why do you want my 9 syllables? Either you are bullshitting, either my 9 syllables mantra has an unimaginable value, or my 9 syllables mantra has a value beyond imagination. In this way, Jihao is even less interested in Pangu's proposal. Thus, Pangu cried and fainted in the toilet. Does my 9 syllables really hide a big secret? Even the old guy hiding in the sea of consciousness is so interested. This technique that I created must be very valuable. Thinking so, the 9 syllables secret technique flowed in Jihao's heart. Then Jihao's body trembled, only to feel that his mind was free, detached from the shackles of his body, and roamed in the endless Tao of heaven and earth. At this moment, countless insights surged in his heart. Lin can summon spirits born by heaven and earth. Bing can control all weapons in the world. Fighting can develop all methods with one method. Bing can absorb the vitality of heaven and earth to recover oneself. All can stack attacks, exploding multiple attacks at once. Formation can control all the formations in the world. Lai can control all the runes in the world. Qian can see the opportunity. Yes can increase speed. The instant epiphany allowed Ji how to understand a lot. This is epiphany? There is actually the legendary epiphany, actually subliming the 9 syllables to such a level. Jihao was wild with joy. Big Bossly said, "Young man, you think too much. The so-called epiphany, isn't it because I let you have the epiphany? Do you think you're the one who had an epiphany?" Of course, Jihao didn't know that he had been enlightened. He thought that he was enlightened by himself. My 9 words mantra is not simple at all. It was not simple at all. No wonder that old man was so interested. No wonder he was willing to spend so much money. But it's not a bad idea to give him the original version in exchange for some benefits. Now that he had a better version of the mantra Dan with 9 secret words, he didn't value the original version too much. In this way, Liu had unknowingly helped Pangu. I need time to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth contained in the jade disk of fortune and Pangu's divine soul memories. It was not that easy to comprehend primal chaos. Liu planned to settle down and spend some time digesting the benefits he got from Pangu. However, I still have to complete the system mission in this world. The so-called system mission was naturally to create a system and then find a host. Who should I find? The southern wasteland was the territory of the fire god, Zhurong. The Fire Crow clan used to be called the Gold Crow clan, which was one of the top clans in the southern wasteland. Unfortunately, its power had been declining over the years, and it had become a subordinate of the Baifeng clan. Of course, this was not a problem. The problem was the Fire Crow clan's people were practicing the Tao of Magus. A strong and sturdy physique, this was what people pursued. As for brains, well, let's avoid this problem for now. The Fire Crow clan is the territory of berserkers. It's not easy to find someone with a good brain. Liu shook his head and gave up on the idea of choosing someone from the Fire Crow clan. The Fire Crow clan's people were all brawny and muscular and looked like little giants. They didn't even fit Liu's taste. Then I can only choose from other small clans. Liu glanced at thousands of clans in the southern wasteland. Is this the Qing-Yi clan? Li Yu saw a clan that had the power of wood. The Magi were mainly using poisons, while the warriors were mainly using agile archers and assassins. The people of this clan were slim and well-proportioned. They weren't muscular or skinny, which was more in line with Li Yu's taste. More importantly, the archers weren't like berserkers, who would pick up their axes and charge forward. They wouldn't be so stupid as to be killed by others. Is the mother of the main character from the Qing-Yi clan? Li Yu nodded and said, "That's good. The host won't have any conflicts with the main character. Otherwise, what if the host kills the main character? Then I'll have to fight with Nuwa and her people." In a place like the Southern Wasteland, it was very common for human clans to fight each other to death. Nuwa had finally found the savior of the world. If the savior was killed by Li Yu's host, Nuwa would risk her life. Making a fortune quietly was Li Yu's way of development. If he fought with these powerful people all the way, it wouldn't be a problem for him to win. However, Li Yu didn't have the time to comprehend the chaos and improve his power. Therefore, finding a host in the Qing-Yi clan was in line with Li Yu's requirements. Li Yu's body flashed, and he arrived at the encampment of the Qing-Yi clan in the blink of an eye. Forests, wooden houses, flowers, and plants were everywhere. The scene in front of Li Yu made him feel as if he had come to an elf clan. Swoosh! On the training field, a group of teenagers were shooting arrows at the target in front of them with simple wooden bows. The Qing-Yi clan was indeed famous for their archery skills. Even a group of 10-year-old teenagers could shoot with great precision and never miss their target. Except, a sharp arrow flew diagonally into the sky, missing the target by several hundred feet. It was unknown where it had shot to. Seeing that the arrow missed the target by thousands of miles, the group of teenagers burst into laughter. The thin body of the teenager who had shot the arrow was trembling, but he still held the longbow tightly and stood straight. Qingming Yusai, the young man who was responsible for teaching the group of teenagers, walked up to the teenager named Qingming, patted the teenager's shoulder, and sighed. "Qingming, your eyes, you should go back and have a rest. Wait until the next great ceremony. Maybe the ancestor soul will find a way to heal your eyes." The young man shook his head and sighed. A trace of pity appeared on his face. This young man named Qingming was very hardworking, but his eyes were blind. An archer must have a pair of sharp eyes. This was the most basic requirement. Qingming, who had lost his eyesight, could never become an archer. In fact, he had no value at all in the tribe. It was hard to survive in the Southern Wasteland. A disabled person who couldn't contribute to the clan would be abandoned by the clan sooner or later. The so-called ancestor's soul's divinity could never restore his eyesight. How important was the great ceremony? How could they waste such an opportunity just for Qingming's eyesight? If there was no miracle, this young man named Qingming would die without a trace. However, am I not a miracle maker? Li Yu nodded with a smile. He was very satisfied with this teenager. Chapter 871. Uncle Qing-Ying, thank you. Although Qing-Ming knew that Qing-Ying was just comforting him, he remained silent for a while, then smiled and nodded, then raised his bow again. This time, he didn't put an arrow on the bow, but only pulled it open. Again and again, he pulled the bow open. Although there was no light in his grayish-white eyes, his young face was still full of determination. Qing-Ming didn't drag his tired body back to his house until the sun had set, when he knew that everyone had left. He walked very slowly. Even though it was a village he was already familiar with, even though he had walked this path countless times, he still walked very carefully. After all, he couldn't get hurt anymore. In the Southern Wasteland, it was very hard for the human race to survive. Even in the Qing-Yi clan, which was rich in medicines, healing medicines were very precious and could be exchanged for all kinds of resources. No one would give such precious medicines to a disabled person. Although it was cruel, this was the law of survival in the Southern Wasteland. In this place, where wars and death could happen anytime, it was very hard to survive. If my eyes could be restored, if... Qing-Ming clenched his fists and let out a long breath. He also had the dream to travel across the wasteland, and he also had the ambition to travel across the world. However, after he lost his eyesight, all of this became a fantasy. The Great Ancestor Soul Ceremony. There is no chance. Qingming slightly shook his head. He knew that the Great Ancestor Soul Ceremony was very important to the clan. Countless sacrifices were made in order to improve the power of the clan, so that the clan could survive in the wasteland. They couldn't waste this opportunity on Qingming. In fact, there are a few ways to restore my eyesight. One is to improve my power to the level of Senior Magus. With the life force of a Senior Magus, I can definitely restore my eyesight. However, without enough medicines and crystals, it would be impossible for him to reach the level of Senior Magus. The other ways, such as the medicine to regrow his limbs, were also very expensive, and he couldn't afford them at all. Even the entire wealth of the clan couldn't afford one of these medicines. Am I going to sink into despair like this and eventually die miserably? I can't accept this. Qingming groped his way to his house, then let out a long breath with a heavy heart. When he pushed the door open, Qingming found that he could see again. He saw something. It was a small tree. It was a small tree that was more than 3 meters tall. It was completely green and exuded a vigorous vitality. Its aura was as vast as the sea. Other than the tree, he still couldn't see anything else. What is this? A tree that he could see was definitely not an ordinary tree. Moreover, the small tree's aura was even more powerful and vast than the aura of the ancestral spirit. A guardian spirit that's even stronger than the ancestor spirit. At this moment, Qingming's heart was filled with anticipation. If this was a guardian spirit that was even stronger than the ancestral spirit, then would it be able to restore my vision? Qingming greets the guardian spirit. Facing this small tree, Qingming respectfully bowed. The bloodline of the Qing tribe was of the wood element. Their ancestors had inherited the bloodline power of a sacred tree, which gave them the power of the wood element. Therefore, the Qing tribe was respectful to the sacred tree. I am Jianmu. Young man blessed by fate, what is your wish? After Qingming bowed, a dignified voice echoed in his mind. Jianmu? Qingming trembled. As a member of the wood element race, how could Qingming not have heard of the Jianmu? Legend had it that the original Emperor Qing was the spirit of the Jianmu. This small tree in front of him was actually the Jianmu, the sovereign of wood, the ancestor of all wood, the origin of all plants. Greetings, Wood Emperor. Qingming hurriedly bowed, then looked at the Jianmu with a face full of hope. Lord Wood Emperor, can you fulfill my wish? I want to restore my vision. Can I restore your vision? That's simple. The dignified voice sounded again. I will bestow upon you a pair of eyes that surpass the mortal world, and I will bestow upon you the power to surpass all living beings. In exchange for this, you must offer me your offerings. From now on, I will take 90% of all your prey. Are you willing? Can I really restore my vision? Qingming's body trembled, and he was overjoyed. He hurriedly agreed. Yes. In that case, the contract is complete. With a flash of green light, the Jianmu turned into a beam of green light and rushed into Qingming's forehead. Rumble. There was a loud sound in his mind. A huge green tree that reached the heavens, and the earth stood tall in his sea of consciousness. Endless radiance shone, illuminating the entire sea of consciousness. This is the pair of eyes that you want. 2 spots of light flew out from the huge tree, crossing the distance between illusion and reality, and instantly fell into Qingming's eyes that were already dead silent. It was as if a warm stream of water was washing his eyes. In an instant, a huge force exploded in his eyes. Swoosh! 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes, like 2 light pillars, and shot out more than 10 feet. When the radiance dissipated, a miracle happened. Qingming realized he could see again. The sky was full of stars, and the river of stars was flowing. Around him, huge trees stood tall, verdant and green. Even within the tribe, The lights that were lit up everywhere were so bright and beautiful. More importantly, he could see very far. The distance that he could see had already surpassed everyone in the tribe. He could even see the nest of buzzing bees at the edge of the cliff that was 10 miles away. Even when he focused his eyes on one of the bees, he realized that the movement of the bee flapping its wings became very slow. Moving his eyes, it was as if time had slowed down. In Qingming's eyes, everything became very slow. More importantly, he could feel that there was still a huge amount of power in his eyes. Lord Wood Emperor, the pair of eyes that you gave me are the... Qingming was so satisfied with the pair of eyes that he was shocked. Natural phenomenon, Saint's double eyes. This is a pair of eyes, and it has a power that is beyond your imagination. The branches and leaves of the enormous Jianmu tree swayed, and a light screen appeared in Qingming's mind. I have countless treasures and godly items. Double-eyed is just one of them. On the light screen, there were countless magical treasures, peerless skills, and secret techniques. Seeing these, Qingming opened his mouth wide and couldn't close it for a long time. You're still too weak now. I will give you 2 secret techniques. You have to quickly increase your strength so that you can get prey and offer them to me. Another radiance shot out from the Jianmu and entered Qingming's divine soul. Stealth technique? Poison tempering technique? Needless to say, the stealth technique was a concealment technique. As for the poison tempering technique, it was a technique to refine poison. It could extract the poison from extremely poisonous objects and use it to temper weapons. All right, our Imperial Majesty Yu Huang is treating Qingming like an assassin to play with. Chapter 872. Giving you the pair of eyes, and the magic consumed my power. In his head, the majestic voice came again. Go hunting. You have to get enough prey and offer it to me. Oh, okay. Qingming came back to his senses and hurriedly nodded. In the southern wasteland, where survival was hard, there was no such thing as a free lunch. If you got something, you had to pay for it. That was natural. Since he had gotten the pair of eyes and the magic from the Wood Emperor, he had to report it to the Wood Emperor. Qingming surely understood this. Picking up the bow, an arrow, Qingming darted out of the house. He activated the sneaking magic and hid himself in the darkness, silently sneaking out of the clan's residence. Even the senior Magus leader of the night patrol didn't notice Qingming's trace. The magic given by the Wood Emperor is so powerful. Qingming was overjoyed. He was now at the 3rd level of Novice Magi, which was totally different from the Senior Magi. However, under the sneaking magic, even a Senior Magus couldn't find him, which was terrifying. After the 12th level of Novice Magi, the next level would be Junior Magi, then Senior Magi. It was hard to imagine that Qingming could still hide from Senior Magus with the difference of a few levels. Big Bossly said that the Magi in this world didn't cultivate their souls. They were not able to resist this kind of invisible magic, which could deceive people's senses and spirit power. The night was boundless. The night in the southern wasteland was undoubtedly very dangerous. However, under Qingming's eyes, the pitch-black forest was as bright as day, and he could see everything clearly. The Qingyi clan was born with the power of wood, which was more suitable for living in the jungle. Qing's sticks moved stealthily all the way and quietly approached the territory of a single horned bear. It was a 10-zhang-long gigantic beast. Its great power and sharp claws made it the dominator of this jungle. A wild beast that is almost at the level of Senior Magi. If I didn't have any magic, I wouldn't even be able to get close to it. Qingming reached out his hand, took out the longbow, and put a dark green arrow on it, then slowly pulled the bow open. Without a doubt, the arrow had been poisoned. Even the shamans in the tribe who specialized in refining medicine did not dare to touch the poison of the soul-breaking grass. However, with the help of the poison tempering technique, Qingming easily extracted the poison from the soul-breaking grass. Swish! The sharp arrow left the bowstring, whistling through the air. Roar! The sharp whistling sound that tore through the sky alarmed the barbaric bear, and it roared as it instantly scurried up. Then it stared its bare eyes wide open as it looked in all directions to search for an enemy that might exist. The horned bear didn't care about this arrow in the slightest. Barbarian bear, who lived near the blue barbarian tribe, had seen countless arrows. Any attack launched by a non-senior level magus would only be able to scratch its skin a little bit and wouldn't be able to hurt it even a little bit. However, this arrow was completely different from the previous ones. Just a scratch on the skin would be enough. Ding! When the arrow hit the bear's thick fur, it made a sound as if it hit a rock. The sharp arrow pierced through the thick fur and left a scratch on the barbarian bear's body before falling to the ground. It was just a scratch, less than an inch long. Oh! The horned bear let out a shrill and miserable cry as it fell to the ground with a plop. The soul-breaking grass's poison is indeed terrifying. Qingming was very happy. This was his first real hunting experience. He had hunted a horned bear. I'm not a disabled man anymore. I'm finally not a disabled man anymore. I'm not a freeloader anymore. Qingming clenched his fists and yelled in his heart. He couldn't wait to prove to everyone that he, Qingming, was no longer a useless man. The prey is not bad. Keep up the good work. When Qingming walked up to the horned bear, the voice in his head reminded him that he only had 10% of this prey, and 90% of it had to be offered to the Wood Emperor. Wasn't it too bad? Liu thought to himself. Mine is still good. 99% of the so-called fixing the sky given to him by Pangu went to Pangu, and only 1% of it went to him. My share is 10 times more generous than Pangu's. Wood Emperor, this is the offering for you. Of course, Qingming knew about the offering ceremony in his clan. The Wood Emperor, in his body, he must be the same as the ancestor's soul in his clan. Not bad, Qingming praised. Then a green light flashed across the air and pierced into the horned bear's body like roots. In the blink of an eye, the horned bear's enormous body disappeared, leaving only a bit of ash. This is your share. Once Qingming finished speaking, a great stream of blood power surged towards Qingming like a raging tide. Qingming let out a muffled moan. He felt as if there was a stream of lava boiling inside his body, as if a volcano would erupt at any time, and his entire body would explode into ashes. You can't even handle this little bit of power? Qingming slightly waved the branch of the world tree, and the boiling blood power inside his body calmed down immediately. Why don't you start your cultivation? Yes. Qingming hurriedly started the cultivation method of the Qing clan. His meridians lit up one after another, ceaselessly absorbing the power inside his body. TSK, what kind of crappy cultivation method is this? You are a human being, but you have the Wood clan's bloodline? And you're cultivating the meridians of the Wood clan? The human race, one of the 3 clans of Pangu, has become like this. You are putting the cart before the horse. While Qingming was cultivating, the disdainful sneer of the Wood Emperor rang out. Wood Emperor, is there something wrong with the cultivation method I am cultivating? Qingming was stunned, and his head was full of confusion. The cultivation method I am cultivating is the cultivation method of the Qing clan that has been passed down for countless years. Why is it called a crappy cultivation method by the Wood Emperor? As for the 3 clans of Pangu, Qingming didn't understand what it meant at all. All right, let me explain it to you. Back then, the human race chose this path because of the first Emperor Qing. The Wood Emperor's side, the human race, the dragon race, and the phoenix race all have the bloodline of Pangu. The dragon race, the phoenix race, and the human race are called the 3 clans of Pangu. However, the human race inherited the potential of Pangu and was born with very weak strength. When the human race was first born, they became the food of all the carnivorous races in the desolate land. In order to find a way to survive, the human race came to the Green Emperor for help. The Green Emperor showed them a way, which was to worship some naturally powerful races and merge their bloodlines. So, the Gold Crow clan, the Baifeng clan, the Rosefinch clan, the Qingyi clan, and all kinds of human clans were born. I see. Hearing the Wood Emperor's introduction, Qing Ming nodded. What's wrong with that? If we don't do that, how can a weak and powerless human being survive? This method is just a temporary measure. To reach the peak, you have to walk the path of the true body of the human race. You can't walk any other path. This method gives you power, but it also gives you no future. But if you can't survive, what future do you have? Qing Ming's reasoning was simple, but it was also very correct. The Wood Emperor didn't know what to say. What about you? You have no problem surviving. Do you still have a future? Do you want to reach the peak of this world? The peak of this world. Qing Ming took a deep breath, raised his head, and said, Of course I do. Of course I want to reach the peak of this world. Good. The Wood Emperor laughed out loud and thought to himself, Another young man has been fooled. Chapter 873. Bow. Shoot. When a morning sun shone into the village, the teenagers of the Qing-Yi clan lined up neatly on the training field under the guidance of the archer Qing Ying. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sharp arrows were shot out and pierced through the air. One arrow after another pierced deeply into the ironwood target. The tail of the arrow, which was made from the feathers of the goshawk, buzzed and vibrated. Bullseye, 3 inches into the wood. Not bad, little boys. You haven't been slacking off these days. Qing Ying glanced at the targets and was quite satisfied with these teenagers' archery skills. Bullseye was the basic requirement, but 3 inches into the wood was the embodiment of strength. To be able to shoot 3 inches into the iron wooden targets, these teenagers were at least at the 6th level of the novice magus realm. In a big clan, this level of strength was not very strong, but in a small clan like the Qingyi clan, it was already a good strength. Da-da-da. At this time, a series of footsteps sounded. The crowd turned around and saw Qing Ming holding a long bow, walking slowly towards the shooting field with heavy steps. Why is Qing Ming here again? Qing Ying, who was teaching the teenagers archery skills, couldn't help but sigh and shake his head when he saw this stubborn and strong teenager. In this world, there were many things that couldn't be achieved by hard work. Qing Ming, why is this loser here again? How could he not come? If the teenagers in the clan don't participate in the training, they won't get any food. If he doesn't come, will he starve to death? What can he train with his current condition? He can't even see. How can he shoot arrows? Is he trying to make a living? Anyway, he has been eating rice for so many years. Seeing Qing Ming walking towards them, some of the teenagers on the shooting field mocked him, some shook their heads in sympathy, and some just ignored him. Qing Ying looked at Qing Ming, who was walking silently into the shooting field, and opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Uncle Qing Ying, my eyes are fine. Qing Ming raised the bow, faced the target in front of him, and nodded to Qing Ying with a smile. Fine. Hearing this, Qing Ying paused and looked at Qing Ming's eyes, which were still gray and dull. With a long sigh, Qing Ying shook his head. He was clearly a blind man, yet he was still spouting nonsense. Who are you trying to fool? Even if you're eating plain rice, there's no need to lie, right? At this moment, a young man standing beside Qing Stix glanced at Qing Stix's gray eyes and snorted heavily. I'm not blind anymore, and from now on, I don't need to eat white rice anymore. Smiling faintly, Qing Ming raised his bow, aimed at the target in front of him, and pulled the bowstring. Buzz! With the sound of the bowstring, the sharp arrow left the bowstring and flew through the air. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air sounded as if it was going to tear the sky apart. Boom! With a loud explosion, the arrow hit the bullseye. Furthermore, it had pierced right through the target. It can't be. Is this a blind guess? Blind people can shoot arrows. He even shot through the target. That's impossible, right? Seeing this arrow, the entire shooting range was in an uproar. The group of youths opened their mouths wide, unable to close them for a long time. You? Qing Ying jumped to Qing Ming's side, looked at this young man with gray eyes, and said with a shocked face, You can hit the target, and you shot through the target. You're already at the 10th level of the novice magus level. Uncle Qinging, I can see now. My cultivation level has also increased by leaps and bounds. Qingming put down the bow, smiled, and nodded to Qingying. Uncle Qingying, can I come to the training from now on? You, what the hell is going on? How come you can suddenly see, and your cultivation has improved so much? Qingming's performance could only be described as a miracle. Qing-ing couldn't believe it. Ancestor souls showed up and gave me a gift. This was what the Wood Emperor told him to say. In Qingming's mind, the Wood Emperor was even more ancient than the ancestor souls. Saying that it was the ancestor souls who showed up was correct. Ancestor souls showed up? Qing-ing popped out his eyes and was stunned. Since when did the ancestor souls become so generous? Wasn't there often no grace bestowed after the sacrificial offerings? Now, they didn't even offer sacrifices, and they just gave him a gift? This was about the ancestor souls, so no one could say anything about it. In the southern wasteland, the ancestor souls were the most sacred beings. The ancestor souls of each clan were the guardians, guides, and the source of power. Although it was rare to see the ancestor souls giving blessings, it didn't happen. It was very troublesome to ask the ancestor souls for confirmation. The ancestor souls slept in the depths of the ancestor lands all year round, and they wouldn't wake up unless there was a sacrifice. Who would waste this rare opportunity to ask the ancestor souls if they had given Qingming a blessing? All right, since you can see now, then come to the training. Looking at Qingstix's gray eyes, Qing-ing was speechless. Qingstix was clearly blind. How could he see? What kind of magic did the ancestor souls use? This kind of miracle that even a blind person could see, perhaps only the ancestor souls could do it. Good. Qingming has started on his way. With the Wood Emperor there, I don't have to care about him. Liu found a floating island in the southern wasteland and made a simple cave residence. Then, he started to study what he got from Pangu, according to the theory of Little Meng's world. The Pangu, Niwa, and even the 3 pure ones in this world should be considered as additional self, right? With Liu's memory, he could find many worlds where people like the 3 pure ones existed. For example, the world of gods, the world of Journey to the West, the legend of the White Snake, Mount Shu, and so on. The 3 pure ones in these worlds had different strengths. Some were so powerful that there was no limit to their strength, and some had their alchemy cauldrons overturned by monkeys. According to the theory of Little Meng's world, these should be considered as additional self. Let's not care about these first. Let's see if the Jade Disc of Fate in this world is so magical. Let's see how powerful the Pangu of this world is. Releasing his spirit, Liu started to feel the rules of heaven and earth contained in the Jade Disc of Fate. The 3,000 great paths are all in it. The Jade Disc of Fate is indeed true, although he didn't know if the Jade Disc of Fate in the Eldritch world was like this. But the Jade Disc of Fate in front of him really contained all the rules of this world. This is the easiest rule of heaven and earth to obtain. In other worlds, Liu had to think of various ways to obtain the rules of heaven and earth. In this world, robbing Pangu directly was a piece of cake. All right, I can only rob Pangu once. If Pangu wasn't in a miserable state, Liu would have to take a blow from the sky splitting axe if he wanted to rob him. It was easy to deal with the rules of heaven and earth. He had many experiences of feeling and controlling the rules of heaven and earth. It was very easy to integrate the rules of heaven and earth of this Pangu world into his own origin. But chaos was more troublesome. Pangu didn't think about it. He didn't think about what chaos was at all. Liu shook his head helplessly. Pangu was born from chaos, and then he created the world, cut open the chaos, and gave birth to this Pangu world. However, his impression of chaos was merely, "What the hell is that? I hate this kind of thick-skinned guy the most." Liu was depressed. Would it kill you to feel it seriously? How am I supposed to interpret a "what the hell is black"? Chapter 874. I'll have to think of another way to comprehend the chaos. In this universe, besides the life forms such as Pangu who created the universe, there was also a species named Chaos Fiend God. These Chaos Fiend gods were also born from the chaos. Some Chaos Fiend gods were muddle-headed and only had endless thoughts of destruction. However, there were also some who were very wise or cunning. Outside the land of the four wastelands, there is an endless ocean. In these oceans, there lives a powerful species, which is one of the three clans of Pangu, the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan originated from Pangu and was Panga's bloodline. However, the ancestral dragon of the Dragon Clan, the eldest son of Pangu, was extremely domineering. He actually caught a Chaos Dragon, one of the Chaos Fiend gods, as his wife. There were originally two Chaos Dragons, a pair of siblings. When Pangu created the world, the Chaos Fiend gods besieged Pangu. They wanted to snatch Panga's position and occupy this part of Panga's world. Among them were these two Chaos Dragons. Then, Pangu killed all the Chaos Fiend gods. The Chaos Dragon's soul was shattered by Panga's axe. The dragon sister was also beaten half to death by Pangu. This half-dead dragon sister wasn't willing to give up, so she came to Pangu world to cause trouble. After that, she became Dragon Mother. How powerful was the ancestral dragon back then? Even Taoist Bodhi, Taoist Lotus, Taoist Dachi, Taoist Qingwei, and Yu Daoren were beaten by him. The five Taoists mentioned above were the two Buddhas of the West and the three pure ones of the East in this world. The ancestral dragon, who is so powerful, definitely wouldn't live long. As far as I'm concerned, Dragon Mother is a chaos origin dragon that is worth studying. Liu took a step forward and instantly traversed the endless void, arriving above a vast and boundless ocean. This is the East Sea. The East Sea of this world was unimaginably vast. It was even bigger and more vast than the Eastern Wasteland. Looking up, there were countless true dragons living in the vast East Sea. As one of the three clans of Pangu, they inherited Pangu's powerful body. The true Dragon Clan could be said to be the most powerful clan in Panga's world. Unfortunately, the ancestral dragon courted death too much. The invincible Dragon Clan that dominated the world back then is about the same strength as the Phoenix Clan now. Liu smiled and shook his head. That's why people say that one shouldn't be too arrogant. Otherwise, one will suffer losses. Not only did the ancestral dragon seek death by beating up the three purities and two Buddhas, he also sought death by taking the Chaos Origin Dragon as his wife. Among the Chaos Fiend gods, the Chaos Dragons were the most powerful creatures that represented destruction and slaughter. The dragons that were born from mating with such creatures would naturally have all kinds of problems. The dragon's greed, dominance, and desire for destruction originated from the nature of the Dragon Mother's bloodline. As a result, all kinds of evil dragons emerged one after another, wreaking havoc and slaughtering the world. This gave many people an excuse to subdue demons and eliminate devils. Didn't you see that the heavenly dragons, under the command of the two Buddhas of the West, were all evil dragons who had turned over a new leaf? As for whether it was a real evil dragon or not, it was understandable that the Western Buddha could not tell for a moment. In fact, the real evil dragons are not the ones behind. Liu saw that 9 real evil dragons were sealed under the eye of the East Sea. The Dragon Mother gave birth to 9 sons. In the current Panga world, people only knew that the ancestral dragon had 9 sons. In fact, the Dragon Mother gave birth to 18 of them. In addition to the 9 sons that the world knew, there were 9 real evil dragons. They were too much of a disaster that even the ancestral dragon himself could not stand it. So he sealed them under the eye of the East Sea. Soul Devourer, Blood Devourer, Bone Devourer, Heart Devourer. These 9 real evil dragons all have the word Devourer in their name. They are even more terrifying than the Tao Tai of the 9 sons. These 9 tyrannical dragons that mainly inherited the Dragon Mother's bloodline not only harmed other races, but also ate the dragons. This was why the ancestral dragon could not stand it anymore. The dragons in this world are also a group of good fighters. Didn't I have the name of Dragon Emperor back then? It's only natural to take the dragons in this world under my command. Flashing across the air, he landed beside the eye of the East Sea. Above the eye of the East Sea, besides the watery light, was a powerful seal. The seals of the dragon kind, phoenix kind, and the human kind. From this seal, Liu sensed the powers of the dragon kind, phoenix kind, and the human kind. It seems that the phoenix kind and the human kind don't trust the seal of the dragon kind. They are worried that the dragon kind will go easy on them. After deciphering the jade disk of creation and fully understanding the natural laws of Panga world, Liu is no different from not having the seal at all. Evil dragons, I will give you a great fortune. I will let you turn over a new leaf and become dragons again. Reaching out his hand, Ji Hao clenched his fingers. Silently, his enormous hand went through the seal and grabbed the 9 evil dragons sealed in it. Flicking his sleeve, Ji Hao sent the 9 evil dragons into the storage. Speaking of which, these 9 are also the ancestral dragon's sons. As long as they get rid of their brutal nature, they can be of some use. The ancestral dragon's 9 sons were top-notch existences in the current Panga world. Of course, compared to the 3 pure ones and the 2 Buddhas and Yuwa, who were at the peak, they were still far from being as powerful as they were. After collecting the 9 evil dragons, Liu turned his head and looked at the outermost part of the East Sea. There was an even larger eye of the East Sea. This huge eye of the East Sea seemed to be the source of all the seawater in the East Sea. Mighty watery light was surging out of it all the time. On this eye of the East Sea, there was an even tighter seal. Dragon Mother is sealed here. In the end, Ancestral Gragon clearly understood that this wasn't just snatching back a wife. This was clearly inviting back a scourge. Ancestral Dragon didn't care about Dragon Mother's nature of destruction and killing. However, no matter how powerful Ancestral Dragon was, he couldn't stand his wife causing trouble for him every day. Today, she ate a human tribe. Tomorrow, she killed a nest of phoenixes. The day after tomorrow, she killed a bunch of disciples of the Western sect. When the 3 pure ones, the 2 Buddhas, and Yuwa came one after another, Ancestral Dragon couldn't stand it no matter how powerful he was. In the end, Dragon Mother was sealed in the eye of the East Sea. Dragon Mother is a Chaos Origin Dragon. Furthermore, she has her brother's body and the body of another Chaos Origin Dragon with her. Liu was very satisfied with the 2 Chaos Dragons he could study. Even if Chaos Dragons didn't care about comprehension or the true meaning of primal chaos, their bodies were born from the chaos itself. After analyzing the body of the Dragon of Chaos, Liu could also explore the chaos from the side and confirm his own understanding. Ancestral Dragon, I'm not here to steal your wife. Liu shook his head with a smile. He reached out and grabbed Dragon Mother through the seal on the eye of the East Sea. Roar! An angry roar rang out, and a violent aura filled the air. Liu felt that the long worm in his hand was twisting crazily. He also felt a faint pain on his finger, as if Dragon Mother was biting his finger with her mouth full of sharp fangs. You really are a wicked woman. Liu shook his head and waved his hand, putting Dragon Mother back into the vault. At this point, Liu had officially stolen Ancestral Dragon's wife. In essence, this should still be considered stealing someone else's wife, right? Chapter 875. Chaos Dragons are indeed wondrous. After collecting Dragon Mother and the 9 dragons, Liu immediately left the East Sea and returned to the southern wilderness. Sitting down in his simple residence on the floating island, Liu began to study the Chaos Dragon's body and explore its secrets. Born of the primordial chaos, the Tao of slaughter and destruction, Liu released the brother dragon that Pangu had killed. The Chaos Dragon's body was enormous. It was 129,600 miles long in its true form. It wouldn't be appropriate for such a dragon to show its true size in the southern wilderness. The brother dragon, In front of Li Yu was only about 30 meters long and didn't reveal its true form. The Chaos Dragon's appearance was exactly the same as a true dragon's. It was said that when the ancestral dragon was born from Panga's bloodline, it resonated with the Chaos Dragon and used it as a model to manifest itself. The body of the primal Chaos Origin Dragon was born from the power of destruction. Every drop of its flesh, every scale, and every claw is inscribed with the supreme true intent of slaughter and destruction. In Li Yu's opinion, the Chaos Dragon's body was engraved with the natural Tao of slaughter and destruction. It was good stuff. Even an ordinary innate spirit treasure would be shattered into pieces if it were bitten by the densely packed, murderous Tao patterns on its teeth. No wonder when Li Yu caught Dragon Mother, he was bitten by her a few times and felt a faint pain in his fingers. Born of the primordial chaos, the Chaos Dragon was a ferocious creature born of the primordial chaos destructive power. If it hadn't met Pangu, a berserker with off the charts, the Chaos Dragon would have been a peerless overlord of the primordial chaos. Every part of its body was born of slaughter and destruction. Its body was engraved with connate patterns of slaughter. If one comprehended the connate patterns of slaughter in the Chaos Dragon's body, they could have created a connate Tao of slaughter. If the Chaos Dragon's body was forged into a weapon, it could have been forged into a connate treasure of slaughter. Unfortunately, this was not what Li Yu wanted. The Tao law of slaughter and destruction was born in the chaos. How did this come about? In Li Yu's eyes, the primal chaos was nothingness. There was no matter, no energy, no order, and no laws. Chaos was born, so why would it be slaughter and destruction? All right, the chaos contained all Taos, so it wasn't strange for it to give birth to slaughter and destruction. However, it was very difficult to deduce the chaos from the perspective of slaughter and destruction. Everything was destroyed to the extreme, and everything returned to chaos. This method was not impossible, but when it was destroyed to the extreme, even its own existence would be destroyed. Only an idiot would do something like that. Let's leave the primordial Chaos Dragon for now. Collecting Brother Dragon's body, Li Yu ignored Dragon Mother and focused his eyes on the 9 evil dragons. Speaking of which, these 9 evil dragons have inherited too much of the Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline. The bloodline of slaughter and destruction made the 9 evil dragons unable to control their instinctive desire to destroy, thus causing them to commit countless sins. Since they have the ancestral dragon's bloodline, how can the descendants of Panga be controlled by the Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline? Li Yu smiled and waved his hand, causing a 5-colored radiance to surge. Endless radiance swept across the area as the Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline in the 9 evil dragons disintegrated, while the ancestral dragon's bloodline grew and thickened. Return to the origin and reconstruct the body of a true dragon. The Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline dissipated completely, while the ancestral dragon's bloodline of Pangu surged within the 9 true dragons. The 9 true dragons were completely golden, radiant, and sacred. They no longer had any evil aura, only natural nobility and majesty. This was the true appearance of a true Panga descendant. Now this is a true dragon. The dragons born of the ancestral dragon and the Chaos Origin Dragon more or less have some of the Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline. Now, the dragon race has completely lost their original appearance. This is too outrageous. Li Yu raised his eyebrows. Since he couldn't understand the true meaning of primal chaos from the Chaos Origin Dragon, he might as well take advantage of the dragons. The dragons of this world need to be purified again. At this moment, Li Yu naturally thought of the dragonized pool. Back then, he had impersonated the Dragon Emperor and created a dragonized pool on Dragon Island in Han Li's world, purifying all the dragons with impure bloodlines and turning them into true dragons with pure bloodlines. Now, the dragonized pool was also very suitable for this world. These 9 true dragons with pure bloodlines have eliminated the contamination of the Chaos Origin Dragon's bloodline. In Panga's world, they'll be even stronger. Li Yu nodded. This is what a true Panga descendant should look like. With a wave of his hand, Liu released the 9 true dragons with pure bloodlines. My 9 dragons Rui chariot has always been unworthy of its name because it lacked 9 powerful true dragons. Now, these 9 dragons are just right for me to use. The 9 true dragons had shrunk in size and were only about 3 meters long. They were golden all over, as if they were made of gold. They shone brilliantly and faintly resonated with heaven and earth. They were naturally auspicious. We pay our respects to His Majesty Emperor Yu. The 9 true dragons knelt in front of Liu. In the memories of their souls, they had always been the mounts of His Majesty Emperor Yu, pulling the chariot for His Majesty Emperor Yu. I've already transmitted the situation of the dragons of this world into your minds. Liu nodded at the 9 true dragons. The bloodline of the dragons of this world has been tainted. As the ruler of the dragons, how can I sit by and watch the bloodline of chaos and slaughter stain the sacred blood of the dragons? Today, I bestow upon you a dragonized pool. As the sons of the ancestral dragon of this world, you shall lead the dragons of this world, return to their origins, and rebuild their true bodies. We obey. The 9 true dragons knelt down and accepted the order. This is the Dragonized Talisman. Take this talisman and go to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Activate this talisman, and you will be able to build the Dragonized Pool. With a flick of his finger, a talisman fell in front of the golden dragons. Go. Yes. The 9 true dragons bowed and instantly broke through the void and rushed to the East Sea Dragon Palace. East Sea. In the middle of the boundless ocean stood a magnificent and luxurious palace. This was the Dragon Palace. Have you heard? A few days ago, that little brat A.O. Lin went to the human territory of Middle Earth and snatched. Picked up some treasures. Humans? That place is indeed suitable for picking treasures. A group of dragons lay at the bottom of the sea and talked nonsense. Roar. At this moment, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded. A brilliant light illuminated heaven and earth and the entire ocean. 9 dazzling true dragons coiled their huge bodies. Their majestic, noble, and sacred auras covered the sky and earth. The resonance that originated from the bloodline made all the dragons in the ocean tremble from their souls and bloodlines. Ancestral dragon? This feeling, this aura, this was the aura of the ancestral dragon. This was the purest aura of the ancestral dragon. How could there be such a pure aura of the ancestral dragon in this world? Roar, roar, roar. In an instant, thousands of dragons roared. The entire ocean was boiling. Countless true dragons broke out of the water, trembling as they bowed in front of the 9 true dragons. Chapter 876. Boom! At this moment, the void trembled violently as 9 dragons of different shapes broke through the air. These were the 9 sons of the dragon. Due to the interference of the ancestral dragon bloodline and the chaos origin dragon bloodline, none of the 9 sons of the ancestral dragon had a complete true dragon form. On the other hand, their descendants' chaos origin dragon bloodline was much thinner, and they regained their true dragon form. It's you, Bayan, one of the 9 sons of the dragon, looked up at the 9 true dragons and quickly identified their origins. These were the 9 sinful dragons that the ancestral dragon had suppressed in the eye of the sea, and they were their brothers. Bayan, also known as Bashya, shook his tortoise-like body violently. You? Why did you come out? And your auras. Sensing the noble and perfect true dragon bodies of the 9 true dragons and the sacred and majestic auras of the ancestral dragon, the 9 sons of the dragon were all dumbfounded and trembling. After being suppressed for hundreds of millions of years, the sinful dragons of the past had actually purified their bloodline. They had regained their sacred and perfect ancestral dragon bodies. My name is A.O. Guang, the eldest son of the ancestral dragon. A golden dragon coiled up and its sacred and majestic dragon aura cleansed the world. Ao Guang, aren't you called Serene? By cursed inwardly, but the name Serene clearly couldn't be used on the sacred and majestic Ao Guang. These guys committed all kinds of evil in the past, and after being suppressed by the ancestral dragon for so many years, they actually obtained such an opportunity to wash away their chaos origin dragon bloodline and become pure ancestral dragon bodies. The 9 sons of the dragon were all envious. As the sons of the ancestral dragon, none of them had a dragon body. This was an eternal pain in their hearts. They had 18 sons, but none of them looked like their father. The awkwardness couldn't be washed away even with all the water in the world. Thanks to the grace of the Lord of the Dragon Clan, we were able to purify our bloodline and return to our origins, restoring our ancestral dragon bodies. Sacred light illuminated the world as Ao Guang raised his head and let out a mighty dragon roar that resounded through the clouds. Today, we also bring you the grace of the Lord of the Dragon Clan. The golden dragon waved its claws, and a vast and mighty light gathered to form the image of a pond in midair. This is the dragon transformation pool. Ao Guang glanced at all the dragons around him. For countless years, the dragons have been suffering from the pain of their bloodline and have never recovered their ancestral dragon bodies. Today, I bring the grace of the Lord of the Dragon Clan. Cleanse yourself in the dragon transformation pool, purify your bloodline, transform into the pure bloodline of the ancestral dragon, transform into a true dragon. The dragon's roar reverberated through the 9 heavens. After Ao Guang finished speaking, the entire EC was dead silent. Countless giant dragons widened their eyes and stared at the dragon transformation pool in the air with their mouths agape. Compared to the pure dragon bodies of Ao Guang and the others, the sacred radiance and the nobility that came from their bloodlines made countless dragons feel ashamed of their inferiority. Yes, that was a true dragon. That was the purest ancestral dragon bloodline. That is our true colors. Roar! An earth-shaking dragon roar resounded. The entire eastern sea was in an uproar. All the dragons cheered. Open the storehouse, move the materials, and build the dragon transformation pool. Dragon Son Tao Wu stretched his neck and roared at the sky. Even Serene and the others, who were driven mad by the chaos dragon bloodline, could recover their ancestral dragon bodies. How can we be inferior to them? As for the Lord of the Dragon Clan that Ao Guang mentioned, there was no doubt that it was the ancestral dragon who had disappeared for countless years. Who else could be called the Lord of the Dragon Clan other than the ancestral dragon? It turned out that the ancestral dragon was not dead. It turned out that the ancestral dragon had been trying to find a way to purify our bloodline all these years. Today, he finally found a way. After the dragon transformation pool was built, the Dragon Clan would definitely welcome a new life. Roar! After the dragon transformation pool was built, Tao Wu was the first to rush in. He was the first to cleanse himself and purify his bloodline. An extremely joyful dragon roar resounded through the sky. A golden dragon with a dazzling golden light swam in the air, displaying his perfect body and sacred bloodline to his heart's content. Roar! 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 The dragons roared and cheered wildly. The commotion caused by the Dragon Clan naturally alarmed countless existences and all the forces in the world. However, in the eyes of these people, no matter what the lunatics of the Dragon Clan did, it was very normal. Moreover, the Dragon Clan was not to be trifled with. As long as the Dragon Clan army did not come to attack, they could not be bothered with those lunatics. Therefore, Liyu's plan to transform the Dragon Clan went very smoothly. Clang! The sound of the heavens was vast and mighty, and flowers fell from the sky. A bright yellow light descended from the sky towards Liyu. This is merit? Liyu suddenly realized that the bright yellow light that descended from the sky was actually merit. I don't need you to reward me. With a flick of his sleeve, the power of merit was instantly stored in the resource vault. The author cried bitterly. Bastard! If you don't want a reward, give it to me. I've been asking for a reward every day. I've been looking forward to a reward for a long time. In this Pangu world, there is the heavenly Tao, as well as luck and merit. Liu glanced at the resource vault and saw the bright yellow power of merit. He smiled and nodded. This is the first time I've come into contact with something like merit. It's a good opportunity to study it. Heavenly Tao, luck, merit, this was a setting that many worlds had. Although Li Yu had collected the rules of this world through the Creation J disc, this was the first time he had seen the real thing of merit. Merit is the reward of heaven and earth. I allowed the direct descendants of Pangu, the dragon clan, to recover their original appearance, which is in line with the needs of the heavenly Tao. Naturally, it will reward me. However, Mr. Li expressed that he wasn't qualified enough to reward him. The matter of the dragon clan was basically settled. The entire dragon clan in Pangu world could be said to have fallen into Li Yu's hands. However, this is of no help to my fundamental goal. For Li Yu, the most important thing was to comprehend the chaos. The him in the origin world was like a sharp sword hanging high in the sky. If he didn't improve his strength quickly, he would end up being swallowed by others. The path to chaos is very difficult. Even if I analyze the chaos in this world, I may not be able to attain the origin of chaos. After all, this world was only one of the many worlds in the universe. To become the origin of all time and space in the universe, the chaos in this world might not be enough. The problem now was that he didn't even have the chaos in this world. My goal is to be a god of creation like Pangu, who created the universe. Chaos fiend gods like the Chaos Dragon were probably just a representation of a certain Tao born from the chaos. They were not the complete chaos. No wonder these chaos fiend gods attacked the creator crazily at the moment of creation. I'm afraid they wanted to seize this position and complete themselves. Li Yu rose to his feet and looked up at the void beyond the heavens. From Dragon Mother's memory, I found a broken world. The creator of this world had already died. However, his body was still here. This creator born from the chaos was equivalent to Pangu. Naturally, he had to study him carefully. Chapter 877. Amidst the boundless void, a crystalline light flashed across. Rushing out of Pangu world and moving swiftly in the boundless void, even with Li Yu's power, it would still take him quite a long time to reach his destination. In the boundless void, there was no up, down, left, right, front, or back. If not for the route in Dragon Mother's memories, Li Yu might have lost his way. This universe is simply too vast. The vast Pangu world was only one of the countless worlds in this world. How many worlds like this existed in the boundless void? Chaos dragons are indeed creatures of the primordial world. It's simply too convenient for void creatures to move about in the primordial world. In this universe, the boundless void outside the world created by the Creator was known as the primordial world. Most of the time, people equated the primordial world with the primordial world. After stepping into the primordial world, Li Yu discovered that there were some differences between the primordial world and the true primordial world. Only the primordial world that gave birth to Pangu and the Chaos Fiend God is the true primordial world. The other places can only be called the void. Following the route in Dragon Mother's memories, Li Yu's figure transformed into a crystalline light, breaking through the boundless void and advancing rapidly. Streams of strange light flashed past his eyes. In the void, these streams of light were extremely eye-catching. Have I finally arrived? His figure flashed, and he instantly rushed into the streams of light. Then, he arrived in a strange world. The sun and moon shone together, and the stars shone brightly. The blazing sunlight and the cold moonlight illuminated this world at the same time. Thousands of bright stars floated in the sky, and their starlight shone brightly. This world had a clear boundary. A shell condensed from purple mist surrounded the entire world. Within the purple mist, countless magnificent and unpredictable golden runes flickered, emitting a heart-palpitating power. Under the radiance of the sun, moon, and stars, a continent floated in the void. What dense natural energy! The spiritual chi that permeated between heaven and earth rippled like water. It was as if the entire world was a vast ocean of spiritual chi. Looking up into the void, there were all sorts of floating islands in the void around the continent. All sorts of spiritual herbs and spiritual herbs were growing on the floating island, exuding a substantial amount of wood essence. Some of the floating islands that didn't have any vegetation were also emitting all kinds of divine light. Obviously, these places also nurtured all kinds of natural treasures. They're all good treasures. Liu glanced at the floating islands and nodded with a smile. These heavenly materials and earthly treasures were all born in this world and could be considered as pretty good natural treasures. However, what Liu was truly concerned about was the continent in the void. That was a boundless continent, larger than any of the 5 continents in Pangu world. In fact, this is not a piece of land. Instead, it was a Pangu. Standing in the void, he looked up at the land. From Li Yu's position, he could see the true appearance of the continent. It was a beautiful girl with a huge body and graceful bearing. That's right, it was a girl. She had a beautiful head, a slender neck, a towering chest, and slender arms. She had a smooth belly and a pair of strong legs. Mountains, rivers, and forests gradually appeared on the body of this incomparably huge girl. Pan Shi, is this your name? Liu looked at the girl, who was as huge as a continent, and sighed deeply. An existence that could split the heavens and the earth had fallen before he could even complete the creation of this world. With a flash, Liu landed on the continent. The land in front of him also transformed into countless living creatures, all kinds of natural treasures, including stone men, water men, tree men, and so on. Liu was standing on Pan Shi's forehead. This was the highest position on the continent. Looking from this direction, there were huge wounds on Pan Shi's chest and abdomen. If placed on a continent, these wounds were bottomless chasms. You died from the Chaos Demon God's attack. After killing the Chaos Demon God, you couldn't have held on either. Liu nodded and transformed into a streak of light, silently merging into the earth. In the next moment, Liu appeared in a space filled with purple mist. This is Pan Shi's Violet Palace Sea of Consciousness. The churning purple mist was vast and boundless, like a vast ocean. In the middle of this vast ocean, a dazzling and beautiful flower floated in the middle of the ocean of purple chi. This huge flower was sparkling and translucent, as if it was carved out of the purest white jade. Endless runes flowed in the dazzling radiance. This is Pan Shi's Dao flower. Liu looked at the Dao flower and saw the purple runes flowing in the stamen. He smiled and nodded. Keeping a diary is a good habit. Compared to that rough man Pangu, a literary girl like you is much cuter. The runes flowing in the stamen were called Chaos Dao runes, also known as Dao runes. Liu originally didn't know a single word, but he had robbed Pangu. Pangu might have been a rough man, but he wasn't illiterate. He was at least literate in this language that belonged to the creator of heaven and earth. Absorb. He reached out, and the runes flowing in the stamen flew into Li Yu's hand. Then I'll take a peek at the girl's diary. Grabbing the amulet, Zhang Xian sent it into his glabella and fused it with his soul. He divided his attention into millions of parts, constantly deciphering all the information Pan Shi had left behind. A literary girl is much better than a rough man. After a long while, Li let out a long breath and smiled. From this cluster of runes, he obtained a lot of information. Everything Pan Shi had experienced, including when she was born, where she was born, what she had experienced, how she cultivated and grew, when she opened the world, even all the Tao laws of this world were not left out in these purple runes. Not only did I obtain the Tao laws of a world, but I also understand the life experience of a creator. This was a huge gain. Compared to that rough man Pangu, Liu could only understand Pan Shi. This Pan Shi was indeed a literary girl. Everything was written in great detail. According to these records, he could recover. Pan, she left these for resurrection, right? Liu chuckled. All right, literary girl. Since this poor Taoist has benefited from you, then I'll return the favor. Pan Shi's Tao flower hadn't shattered, and her body was ready-made. It was very easy to operate. Resurrecting an existence equivalent to Pangu is also a novel experience. Liu is very interested. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.